Jay Crawford, Adam the Bull, Garrett Bush, Tyvis Powell, Jason Lloyd. Plus, ba-da-da-da-da, you're loving him, Mikey McNuggets. And so many big names, it would take me hours to say all of their names. The ultimate Cleveland sports show starts now. Booyah!
What have you done with Adam the Bull? What the heck is going on?
What is going on?
The beard is no more. It was a sad day.
How long did it take you to shave it? How long? An hour?
I didn't do it.
Oh.
The girl who cut, shout out the woman who cuts my hair, Jen, did it.
Shout out Jen.
I went for a haircut yesterday, and I was just thinking about it, and I'm like, I'm going to Florida. It's going to be hot, and I've been wearing a mask outside of work this week because I'm super paranoid about getting sick before I go away.
I know.
I sent a text last night to the group.
It's true.
If you have any sick symptoms, stay home.
True.
I even said I would pay your day at work.
Facts.
He said,
if you were sick, just so you would stay home.
Right.
And because I'm like so paranoid about my vacation getting ruined because Aaron was sick a few weeks ago.
is he feeling better, by the way?
He feels better. He has this thing still called, I didn't even know this was such a thing, post-viral cough. A lot of people are getting this. It's like after a virus, you keep coughing. And so my doctor said it can last for 2 months where you're not contagious, but you have these bad coughing fits. She was like, you got to drink water every time you cough. You got to do sucking candies. And if you do that, it could end into it. But anyway, and my wife was not feeling great earlier in the week. So I was like, I got to be real careful. I cannot get sick. I want to be healthy. And I'm leaving in 3 days. So I'm like paranoid about it. And so I've been wearing the mask, and wearing the mask with the beard was really annoying.
Yeah.
Obviously, wearing a mask sucks, period.
Yeah, right.
But wearing it with the beard was so annoying. So between that and knowing that it's going to be hot in Florida when I go, I was like, I think I'm going to shave it off. And I was sad because it's the longest beard I ever had in my life.
How do you feel now with the naked face?
It feels weird. When I first saw my face, I was like, and it hasn't been that long. It's only been like, I don't know, 4 or 5 months.
Yeah,
maybe.
Half a year.
But it was weird to see my face without the beard. It feels good, though.
It does. After you shave, it does feel good, but there is that immediate recognition of yourself that you're like, this is what I look like?
Yeah. I know. I didn't like that. But I think I look much younger.
You do look much younger.
Because the beard was so gray.
You a good husband and father, bro. I'm going to tell you why, bro. Yeah. Listen, I don't care if y'all was sick. I didn't pay for these plane tickets. You on that plane.
Oh, yeah. We're going.
We going.
We're going.
You just might be miserable.
No, Bull just wants to enjoy all the days and not have to not have to spend some of the days
sit outside
in their hotel or whatever. Yeah.
No hotel. We got an Airbnb.
Yeah.
Or whatever. You don't want to sit inside because
you can quarantine them. Yeah. You go to your own wing, dog.
No. That's it. So I'm ready to go. So anyway, good to be back. I feel like I'm off forever with Mondays and Tuesdays. And after I come back from vacation, I'm going to be working more often, which I'm excited about. But anyway, a lot to get to today. Nick Chubb, could he end up being a cap casualty? Should Jim Brown's number be retired across the NFL? When Earl first texted the rundown, my first thought about that subject was one thing, and then by the time that I got to an hour ago, I had changed my mind on it.
So did I.
will tell you which way.
I'm very curious if we're on the same wavelength with this, because I did do a flip-flop this morning.
Yes.
Y'all think y'all slick. I already know what the flip-flop is. You already know what that is. It's a knee-jerk. You be like, I don't know about that, dog. Then you go retire that number. Then you be like, they forgave him.
Yeah, that's right. But also, I know there's been some talk already this week about the what is it, the tent poles? Not the tent poles.
The Championship Foundation.
Championship Foundation. We'll get into that some more today. So there's a lot to get to on today's show. And I know, by the way, I know you said this is talked about to death, but give me 30 seconds on this.
Yeah.
Because everybody was so worked up about the All-Star game, especially old people.
NBA All-Star game for anyone who...
NBA All-Star game, right?
Yeah.
And I got to say, I'm proud of myself because I feel like I'm becoming less of a old guy curmudgeon. I don't understand why people are so worked up about this All-Star game. I don't watch it personally because I don't find the game interesting.
Yeah.
But why would I get worked up about it? There's so many old white dudes. I shouldn't even say white dudes. I think old people just in general.
You're describing Bob Ryan. It's who you're really describing.
But it's not. I think this has actually nothing to do with race. This is just age. Old people remember People my age and older remember what the game used to be.
Right.
And the game was a lot better. The actual game, All-Star game, was a lot better. But it's not like this is the first year it's been this way.
No.
And by the way, the ratings were up.
Yeah.
So the young fans, they don't care that they're not playing defense. So all the 50, 60, 70-year-old people out there, stop getting worked up. Just don't watch it. I don't watch it because I'm not interested. So but let it be. Fans like it.
I said on Monday, if you go into it expecting a basketball game, you'll always be disappointed. If you go into it wanting to see Jokic and Luka mess around and literally take a game unseriously and see Dame shoot half-court shots and Steph do crazy things, you're going to be entertained because it's simply the best players in the world doing something they wouldn't do in a regular game. But if you have the expectation that it's going to be something else, you're going to be sorely disappointed
and
year in and year out.
Though, because it hasn't been that
they've told you. They told you
you
before it even started.
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards said it flat out. He goes, it's an exhibition. This is my vacation from the season. I'm just here to have fun. He's one of the 24 guys in. If he's saying that, what makes you think anyone else is taking it seriously?
I always tell people sports is just like music. It's a young person's game. Like, I don't listen to rap music and be like, oh, my gosh, I'm so into this new rap. No, because it's a young man's game. Like, it's about a vibe. It's energy. So, like, I'm not going to tune into the All-Star game and think that it's going to be Magic versus Isaiah Thomas and Bird, like, playing hard. Like, it's a young man's sport.
That's it. It's different, and that's okay. I used to be someone who would all the time like, all the new music sucks. I mean, it's just not my cup of tea, new music, for the most part. That doesn't mean it sucks. It just means it's not what I like. But we got to stop being like, our generation did all this right, and these young people are a bunch of idiots. No, they just like different things than we did. Just like when we were young, and obviously you're in a different generation than us, and even G and I are
in a different generation.
At least a different half a generation.
Yeah, like.
But like, I'm sure when I was 20 and listening to Billy Joel and Huey Lewis in the news, that the 50-year-olds then were saying that music's crap.
Or when
Same thing.
Or when Madonna was taking over the world, like they were like clutching their like a virgin. You can't say that. And the fact that it was
a big deal.
And they had a black Jesus up there, and the black Jesus was crying blood.
Yeah.
That was kind of crazy back then. Matter of fact, that still might be crazy. Steve, you got any rebuttal for that?
Steve loves Madonna.
He was like, that's what got me on the train.
Exactly. Well, it's good to be back, and we got a ton to get to today. Let's send it to Earl before we hit our first topic. Earl?
Hey, no super chat here, but this comment warrants to be talked about. Shout out to John Canterbury. Bull looks like he got traded from the Red Sox to the Yankees.
Yeah, that's right.
That's true.
You right.
No facial hair.
Yeah. I wouldn't – I mean, I wouldn't want to play for the Yankees, but that's bullshit.
You play for the Yankees.
Do you think that's really still a rule?
It is.
It is.
No, it is. It is. Mandatory.
So
you cannot have facial hair on the Yankees.
So if Shohei Ohtani,
I think you could have a mustache.
You can have a mustache now.
If Shohei Ohtani was like, I'm gonna grow a beard, they're like not gonna take him.
I mean, if he forced the issue, they would take him.
There you go.
Sure.
I need somebody to force that issue.
The superstars to this point have never tried to force the issue.
Have obliged.
Yes.
That's kind of strange.
Aaron Judge. If Aaron Judge said he's growing a beard, what are the Yankees gonna do?
Trade him.
Get him out of here.
Come on.
Trade for the Guardians.
Well, I appreciate that. I hope I've shocked the world here. So anyway, go ahead, Earl.
All right, get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet all of your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. So for the last couple of days, boy, we've been doing our own assessment of the Cleveland Browns foundation. And today we are going to compare our notes to Jeremiah Trotter and the MST podcast as they released the Cleveland Browns foundation yesterday. Steve, you can take tag board forward. Let's have a conversation about it. What you think?
So now, to give a little, let me give a little context because Bo wasn't here the last 2 days. Moving the Sticks podcast with Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks did it player by player. We did it position group by position group because we wanted to split it offense, defense, and we'll compare our answers in a sec. But before we compare our answers to what Moving the Sticks podcast did, I want to see if you agree with what the panel's consensus on Monday and Tuesday was.
Fair enough.
So the 4 categories, in case anyone missed it, and if you watch every day, we apologize for the 3rd day in a row explaining this. But blue is for a blue chipper.
Right.
Top of the line. Green was
good.
Green good. Yellow, age, injury, contract concerns, and then pink.
Just some concern.
Some sort of concern.
Yeah.
Pink was young and unproven.
What about if the guy just sucks?
Pink was as low as it went.
Okay.
Now,
so
they didn't put any players who just sucked in when they did it.
Yeah.
They did usually the 12 best players.
All
and
right.
that's why we went with categories, position groups instead.
Okay,
So
made sense.
for the UCSS panel,
Yeah.
on Monday it was JG Earl. Tuesday it was me, G, and Earl.
Okay.
We went yellow for quarterback room, which is concerns.
Fair. I would agree with that.
Yellow for running back room.
I would agree with that.
We went pink for the overall wide receiver room. Now, there's no in between, which is the issue, because we knew Amari Cooper was not a pink. The rest we put in the pink, and we thought the rest outweighed Amari Cooper.
I know it really doesn't fit, but I think I would give them a yellow.
Well, we said the same thing, but because we want to compare it to their answers.
I guess I would have to, based on that, I'd have to go pink. But
we went blue for the tight end room.
Is David Njoku blue chip? I feel like he's kind of between blue and green, but I mean, based on, I'd go green.
Green, okay. And we went green for the offensive line as a whole.
I would agree with that. So I think you guys did a good job.
On the defensive side of the ball.
Major beefs on there.
Defensive side of the ball. We went blue for defensive ends. Not tackles. This is just defensive ends.
Well, if we're weighing down Amari Cooper, don't we have to weigh down?
Well, Myles Garrett is on a different level than Cooper.
That's fair.
And is Alex Wright, Ogbo, and Isaiah McGuire, how do they compare to the unknowns of Tillman, David Bell, and Elijah Moore?
I mean, it's a little better. I don't think significantly, but I agree. Myles Garrett's better than Amari Cooper. All right, I'm okay with that.
And we had a light blue.
We did a light blue.
Light blue, yeah. I would go light blue.
Which is not exactly the category that is how
we
went.
All right, yeah, I agree with that.
So the defensive tackle and linebacker room, we actually gave 2 grades because this is technically the assignment was guys on the roster right now.
Right.
The only defensive tackles on the roster right now are Dalvin Tomlinson and Siaki Ika.
Right.
Now, we went in the assumption they'll resign a guy or two, and we went with a green for the defensive tackle room. With the caveat, the reality is today it's a pink because it's just Tomlinson and Ika, and there's so much unknown.
I would agree if they brought back Shelby Harris or somebody of that ilk.
Mo Hurst.
Then I would probably go green.
We said they should bring back 2 out of the 3 between Hurst, Shelby Harris.
Yeah, I mean, if they bring 2 of the 3 or one of the 3 and another player that's of that level, then I would agree with the green. Yeah.
The only linebackers in the contract right now are JOK, Diabate, and Tony Fields. So we went with a pink. However, with the caveat, we think they'll sign Taki Taki back.
If Taki Taki
brings it a green.
And or Walker come back, then I would go to – I would actually go to green.
Green?
Really?
Yes.
If both come back. What if just one comes back?
I would still go green. That's how much I think of JOK right now, which is crazy because I thought he was total trash a year.
I said that.
We'll get to JOK because that's one of the players they mentioned in Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks.
Right.
We went.
I think they gave him a blue, didn't they?
No, he gave him a green.
Oh,
and we're going to talk whether he's a green or a blue.
Yeah.
Cornerbacks, not safeties, cornerbacks. We went with a blue chip group.
Yes.
And then safeties, we went green.
I wanted to give him a yellow.
He wanted yellow. He was
because
outvoted.
I'm more yellow than I'm yellow.
Okay.
I'm not sold completely on anybody at safety. They're not terrible.
No.
But I don't know that any of them are good enough.
And I think Grant Delpit played good enough, but he
does have the injury concern. That's
concerns
fair.
are there.
Yeah.
And Thornhill didn't show me much.
No. But I think we're in the same ballpark.
So that's how we went. And if you were with us the last 2 days, it seems like you've kind of been in the same.
Yeah.
So now,
Okay.
Earl, if you want to pull up Daniel Jeremiah's, and the differences are, they went player by player.
Right.
We went group by group, but we'll still.
But he only did like the top
12 guys.
Okay, 12.
He combined some offensive linemen into one player, but. Earl, let's go player by player.
Yeah, that was weird. Why did he do? Because there were other teams he didn't do that.
That's why we did it a little differently.
It was strange,
but we do want to have the comparison's sake.
Because when I saw the Bengals list, he didn't have any combined offensive linemen.
No.
I thought that was weird. But go ahead.
So let's see how Daniel Jeremiah went.
Okay. It's a little hard for me to read, Earl, so you might have to tell me there. So we start with Deshaun Watson. He gets a yellow.
Which is in line with
completely fair. I mean, what else could you do right now?
And even we asked the chat when we did this on Monday.
Yeah.
What category they'd put Deshaun Watson in. 56% of the chat said yellow as well.
I mean, how could you put him anywhere else?
I don't think you can. But
it's injury. It's performance.
Yeah.
It's
contract.
So it's all the above letter D. Like,
if you're, did anybody put him in blue? In the
No,
chat?
it was actually.
nobody even put him in green.
Yeah.
It was yellow, green, blue, and then unproven.
Right.
Was obviously nothing.
Obviously, listen. If you say he's a green, you're just projecting.
Yeah.
And hoping.
And we hope he's in the green or blue at the end of the season.
Yeah.
Right. He certainly can get back there, but today he's not.
He's never been in the green. He was in the blue in Houston, and he's been in the yellow here.
Yeah, I would argue that. I could argue
that.
that.
He was a blue chipper.
I mean, you want to say as a rookie, he was probably pink.
Yeah.
And then after that, he was blue, and here he's been a yellow. He's never been just good.
No, he was in my opinion,
we'd all take that. I'd sign for good now.
But he was a definitive blue chipper in Houston. I hope he gets back to that. I still think that's in him somewhere. It's just a matter of can the Browns, can Dorsey, Stefanski, this offensive staff get it out of him. But as of today, I don't think there's a case to make an argument he's anything but a yellow in that sense. No.
Go ahead. All right, what's next? What do we got?
Next one, there was some dissension, and Earl, you're going to have to chime in here because it's Nick Chubb. Now, we ended up as a unit putting the Browns running backs and mostly Nick Chubb in the yellow. Earl had him as still a blue chipper. And Earl, now you see how Daniel Jeremiah and Bucky Brooks
what did they put him as?
They put him as a yellow.
He has to be a yellow.
It's because as I was here with Jay, I read it off. I read off the knee injury that he had, and it wasn't even a knee injury that he had this year. I read off 3 torn ligaments when he got hurt back in Georgia, 2015.
Yeah.
So this is the second time he's torn multiple ligaments, 3, so 6 in total.
Yeah.
And also he missed time in 2020.
That's right.
So I don't know how you can figure that.
No, and then tack on his age.
Yeah, and he's a running back.
He's the same age that Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott, who both basically went off the cliff last year, were. Now he's at his best is better than those guys, but not by much when they were all at their best. I mean, those guys were great Pro Bowl backs too. So, in fact, those guys are both better pass catchers than he is or have been in their careers. So there's no, I love you, Earl, but last week you were arguing that some team would pay Nick Chubb big free agent.
You love me. I can defend myself on this first.
I know, but I'm saying last week you argued that he would, somebody would pay him big money in free agency, which is never going to happen.
I still think he's a blue chip. I can tell you why. First and foremost, I think the things about age and position, in my opinion, those are cliches and stereotypes. 28, 29, 30, 31 is not old, whether you play in the NFL or not.
Yes, it is, though. The facts back it up.
But how? Because you have premier wide receiver, the top premier wide receivers right now in the NFL are all between 29 and 31 years old.
That's not true.
You can go look.
Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase are the 2 best receivers in the league.
Just go look at it from last season.
Well, wait a second. First of all, we're talking about a different position.
Right. So,
okay.
I'm trying to get it out.
That's number one.
I'm trying to get it out.
That's irrelevant. But
okay,
Jefferson and Chase are the 2 best receivers.
I'm trying to get it out.
Go ahead.
I think Nick Chubb is blue chip, period. I don't really have concerns about the injuries or his age or his position. I look at Nick Chubb in rare air like I looked at Adrian Peterson when he played the position. I understand that he's torn multiple ligaments in the same knee multiple times. The first time he did that was 2015. That was, 9 years ago. So I'm not really too concerned with that. People can think of it how they want to think of it, but when you look at science, medicine, and recovery in 2024, this is not the 1980s. I think that he can fully recover and come back and still have a significant impact. If I'm wrong, but that's what I feel.
Of course, it's possible he could do that. But there's no way you could be sure about that.
I never said I was sure.
Well, but the pink means it's a question mark.
The yellow.
A yellow means it's a question mark. So you're admitting it's a question mark. If you're saying you're not sure about it, then you're saying it's a question mark. None of the things everything you said just now is hope. It's not facts.
I never said it was facts, though. None of it is facts.
Yes. Well, here's what's facts. That there are the amount of 29-year-old and older running backs that are still great really don't exist.
But Nick Chubb is not those dudes. I think Nick Chubb is in rare air like Adrian Peterson.
But again, what I'm saying is a fact. What you're saying is an opinion. I agree. Aren't Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott great backs? They were.
They was never on the same level as Nick Chubb.
I don't know that they weren't. I mean, I would take Nick Chubb over them, but not by much. I think it's minuscule different. Dalvin Cook has been one of the best backs in the league. Same thing with Zeke Elliott. but they both went off the cliff. Both had their worst years of their career, and they weren't coming off an injury that Nick Chubb is. To say you're not worried about it, the assumption is not even going to be ready for week 1.
Even if he's not ready for week 1, so what? We're not worried about Nick Chubb in September. We need
But
Nick
Earl,
Chubb in December.
how would you possibly call a guy a blue chip who's 29 and not even going to be ready for week 1?
Because that's my opinion. Just like this entire list is projected to be anybody's opinion. I still think he's a blue chip running back.
When I was parsing it, for me to put anyone in a blue chip category, it had to be someone I had no questions about.
Right.
That's why I put Chubb in the yellow, because I do think there are question marks. That doesn't mean Nick Chubb can't get back to being a blue chip form, but right now, I put him in yellow for that exact reason.
For me, just to me, he has to be, and he's a way better athlete than me. Let's be clear. I've had 17 some odd surgeries. I've torn my ACL and MCL and all that other good stuff. Here's what I do know just from the circumstance. Yes, medicine has gotten a ton better. You're never really up to what you used to be. However, the goal is and the hope is that 98% of Nick Chubb is way better than 100% of other people, right?
Sure.
I think 85% of Nick Chubb is better than most.
But the question is, can he even get to that? And B, if he does, when will it happen?
And
is it the second half of next year?
And there's another thing about the question is, what does the offense look like, right? It's not going to be the same old Nick Chubb offense where we hand him the ball. Hey, trust me, I'm the guy that wanted to give him 20 carries every week.
Yeah.
I don't think 20 carries every week is definitely not in the program now. I think that they'd be smart to go get another running back and to lessen the blow and then if you get 12 good carries from Nick Chubb, I'll take the 12 good carries, right? And then if he's blue chip for 12 carries, salute.
Yeah. I mean, do I think it's possible he could be blue chip? Absolutely. It's possible, but
are you going to?
It's too big. It's too big a devastating an injury, and at his age for a running back, that there's too many question marks.
Now I advocate him being on the roster. I advocate him
100%.
I advocate him.
Yeah, and we'll get more to that in a little bit. But let's go to the next position. What do we got next, Earl?
Next up was wide receiver, right, Earl? Or at least Amari Cooper?
I think next up was, Amari Cooper. They had him in green.
Amari Cooper, we can combine Cooper and Njoku, both greens. We put as a group the receiver category in pink because the rest of the guys were unknown. We put Njoku in the blue, so we were differentiating as a group. We didn't do individual players. Bull, what do you think about? We'll start with Cooper.
I would like to know how many wide receivers
he
called blue chip.
Like where's the delineation?
Where is the line?
Is it top 10? Is there 15 blue chip guys?
I think it's fair. I don't disagree because, to me, blue chip is the 6 or 8 best guys. I don't know where that line is exactly. Now
it's that tier 1, whatever the number is. The tier 1.
If you told me looking at how many starting receivers there are, if you do 3 receiver sets,
it's 90.
It's 90.
Or 96.
I'm going blue chips is 10. Give me 10 guys.
Yeah.
And that's only everybody can't be blue chip.
Yeah. So to me, Amari Cooper's probably somewhere around 10.
Right.
He might be 9. He might be 11. He might be 8. He might be 12.
Somewhere in that range.
My first gut reaction is that green is right for him. But I would make him to me. David Njoku's a light green and Amari Cooper's a dark green. See, closer to blue.
I kind of disagree with that.
I think. Why? Because you think Njoku's going up?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think Njoku's closer to that. So you said 10G. I think if you're going blue chip, I think that's the best of the best.
Right.
I think.
But I don't think Njoku's best of the best.
I think he's closer to whatever that tier is, whether it's top 5, 6.
I don't agree.
I think Njoku's closer to tier 1
Amari
tight
Cooper's
ends.
done it a number of years. Now he's getting older, so he could drop off.
And that's part of it.
But Njoku's only played, and first of all,
he had half a great
Amari
season.
Cooper has had a few tier 1 seasons.
Yes.
I mean,
David Njoku has never had a tier 1 season, and he's only had 1 tier 2 season.
In my head, when I look at it, if I'm just naming off the top of my head, if I'm now, here's where I differ. I don't know if I would put Puka Nacua I mean, but
Puka's got to do it another year.
But
you'd rather have Puka because he's younger.
But he had a blue chip year.
He did. He had a blue chip season.
He had a blue. And then if you say I got Jefferson, and then I got Chase, and I got Devontae Adams over here. Tyreek Hill. That's 5 right there.
Diggs.
Stephon Diggs. You got CeeDee Lamb.
CeeDee Lamb.
That's 7 right there.
I'm taking Amon-Ra.
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
That's 8
Brandon
right there.
Ayuk was first team all.
Brandon Ayuk. Yep, there it is.
Bull loses his beard and loses all sense
Brandon
of balance.
Ayuk, that's 8 right there, and I mean,
I don't.
I mean, Keenan Allen had another. I mean, these are just guys.
Mike
Evans, Keenan Allen. Bull is.
I think now's a good time to tell people if you want to see more hijinks like me busting up the set. Make sure you subscribe to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Hit that subscribe button. If you are watching right now, you people, I'm talking to you. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button, and you'll get alerts every time the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show is on, every time the Ultimate Cleveland Browns Show is on with G. Bush, every time the Ultimate Cleveland Cavs Show is on with Mike and Jason, every time the Ultimate 216 Show is on with Earl, every time the Behind the Glass with Anthony, Earl, and Mike. And eventually we'll have an Ultimate Cleveland Guardians Show, which will probably start sometime in March with a host to be determined. So please hit that subscribe button, thumbs up, do all that. You won't regret it.
So can you send her the basketball?
What's
can
that?
You send her the basketball back, please?
Why can I hear Earl? What the hell is going on?
He said send her the basketball.
Oh, send her the basketball. Okay. Oh, I can hear you now, Earl. Go ahead.
Now,
great job out of you.
Now here's the thing, though.
Yeah.
Like, since I've done that exercise and I see now I can say, yeah, you're right. He's agreeing.
Yeah.
Now, the same thing with David Njoku. If I go through the list, now it's only one tight end that usually starts. So now I got to cut that list down to about 5 or 6.
Right.
5.
Okay.
And I think Njoku's in the conversation for that 5 spot.
So you got Kelsey,
Laporta,
Kittle,
Andrews,
Laporta. And then I think Njoku's right in that conversation.
Now we're forgetting a good Hawkinson.
Okay.
Hawkinson, and you can squint and make Njoku.
I can't put it.
But
Hawkinson's been good for a number of years.
Hawkinson fine, but Laporta as a rookie, and yes, I would take him ahead. I'm not saying
Laporta as a rookie had a better season than Njoku's ever had.
But I'm just saying, I think you can make the argument that he's right there 6, which puts him closer to that blue chip tier 1 category.
I think Amari Cooper's just as close. I think it's close. Now, you're asking who'd you rather have for the next 5 years? Of course, you'd rather have Njoku.
But yeah, it's not.
If you're asking who's been the consistently better player in their careers, it's not close.
I'm not arguing that point. Yeah.
But in the end, I think they're both green.
I think they're green.
I think that's fair green.
That was a 10-minute discussion to agree with Daniel Jeremiah.
Yeah, that's right.
They had some offensive line combos here.
Yeah.
So they had 4 offensive linemen in the yellow. Conklin, Bitonio, Jed Wills, and DeJuan Jones. But they had Pochich and Teller in the green. Overall,
I wonder why they did that way.
And they're the only team that they put.
Well, here's the thing. If you look at the PFF grades, Teller and Pochich had good seasons.
Yes.
Bitonio was He was okay. Mm-hmm. DeJuan Jones, based on PFF, was okay, which we're fine with because he's a rookie.
Great for a rookie, but in the grand
and the other guys were not very good.
Yeah, you're right.
So maybe that's why they split it that way. Because, I mean, right now, Wyatt Teller's I think it's past Bitonio.
I would agree.
As the best O-lineman on the team, I think.
Yeah, I think, and you know what O-line, they start going on name after a while.
Yes, that's 100% true.
You just be like, oh, I heard his name a bunch.
Right, he must be good.
Yeah. Nah, not really.
When those guys start to tail off,
it can go quick.
The general public doesn't really pick up on that.
You don't see it.
Yeah.
Like, it's like until you're like forced to be like, dang.
Right. Until he's terrible or he's getting cut.
Let me ask you guys this, and we'll move through this quickly. Conklin, injury concerns for sure, right? He's
huge.
A definitive yellow.
Yeah.
Bitonio, age, contract, injury. Do you have questions about Bitonio moving forward?
I still would call him a green, a lower tier green, but I'd still call him a green.
I actually would agree with that.
He is unripened bananas.
Yes. But I agree. I think Bitonio, maybe it's just based off reputation. I still think he's
a green in decline.
He might not be a great green anymore, but he's certainly still.
Well, he was a blue, I think.
Well, that's what I mean.
I think a few years ago he was a blue.
But I mean, even on the green scale, he may not be. But he's perfectly solid.
Yeah,
if you have Bitonio, you're not worried about a guard.
I could argue Wills is pink.
Wills and DeJuan, they're both in the yellow. I don't think it's too early to give DeJuan a legitimate good.
I think we got to stick DeJuan in yellow for now. He does it again next year. I'm moving him up. I agree with you. I think Wills is pink.
Wills should be pink.
Wills is definitely pink.
And then Teller and Pochich, I feel there's not many questions.
They're green. I mean, I think Teller and I think they're both borderline blue.
So, but
for their position.
Yeah. But so we're not disagreeing with that.
Yeah, no.
Let's go to defense. We'll make this one super quick. Myles Garrett, blue chip, no disagreement.
That's not worth discussing.
Ogbo, a yellow. I had him as a green personally. Gee, I don't know where you fell yesterday.
He's not a starter.
He's a specialist.
Yes.
So if I wouldn't mind him being a yellow if he's just a specialist because I'm going to play him on pass rush downs. I don't got a problem with saying he's not going to be no run stuffer or nothing.
Yeah, I can't give a guy who's not a starter a green.
Well, this was one of the ones where I wish there was more specification on the categories because I don't have age or injury or contract concerns for him. And I don't think he's necessarily a certified good player.
If there was a category between yellow and green, that's where we put
But because
Ogbo.
I didn't have concerns, I put him as a green.
Quality backup.
He's a guy I want on my team.
Right.
Yeah, perfectly.
Maybe backup's not even the right word. High quality rotational player.
He's a good piece.
Yes.
A good piece.
Yeah.
So, and I gave that to Alex Wright. I gave him a yellow. That's not a bad thing.
I didn't love the categories.
Well, Alex Wright has more to prove, certainly. Yes.
But I just didn't love the categories for Ogbo.
I think we know what Ogbo is. He's a good, solid. Like, Alex Wright could be better, but he might not be as good as Ogbo. I will say.
Ogbo's one of the best third pass rushers.
Yes, absolutely. Agreed.
We disagree with this next one. Denzel Ward. We had him in the blue chip category. Daniel Jeremiah had him in green. Who's right, who's wrong? Us or Daniel Jeremiah?
I'm with you guys. I think he's blue. Now, I think he's lower tier blue, but I think he's not like dark blue Myles Garrett.
No, he's
in the blue because he is a guy to me. He's one of the few corners in the league that teams are teams worry about him.
Yes,
he is obviously teams worry most about Myles Garrett when you play the Browns, but after that they worry about Denzel Ward, and we saw what this defense looked like when Denzel didn't play. Their secondary was lousy in those games.
I think the Browns defense has 3 blue chip players, and one of them is JOK, another one.
I can't go to blue yet. He's got to do it again.
I'm with you. We can, in my mind with JOK, last year to
he
Cole
was
Jackson,
a blue last year.
He played a blue chip season.
He had a blue chip season.
Before I make him a blue, he's got to do it twice.
That's right. That's how I feel. He's got to do it twice before I put him there.
But he's right on that edge. He's right on the precipice.
I don't know that I've ever. I mean, that is so weird to have a player go from, I don't know if this guy can even play in the league, to he had a blue chip season.
Yeah.
How often do you see that?
He was the best player on that field defensively for both teams against the Texans and the Browns. Best player. Out of all, Will Anderson, all of them.
Of defense?
Of defense.
100%.
He was just in he had.
I thought there were multiple games.
And you got to even give him more credit because he was getting zero help
at all. He was in the backfield. I'm like, dang, JOK.
Yeah. So they had him as green. I think he had a blue chip season, but I think green's the right spot. Yeah. Last two, and this one I disagree with a lot.
Yeah.
Delpit and Newsome both in the pink, which to their category, and this is a quote.
Oof.
Unproven / young. I'm not sure.
Pink?
Is pink, and they're both pink. In the I'm not sure you could call any of them quote unquote young anymore.
I would put them both as yellow.
They're
if you want to go yellow or green, but pink feels way off.
There's yellows to me, and I think recency bias has you feeling more pinkish on Newsome just because he just didn't do very well on Nico Collins. They just made. They was like, yeah, Nico, we're gonna Emerson, we're not gonna mess with him. We're gonna go right at you though. And it was just tough on some of those. But I think he's still a yellow too.
Greg Newsome is a guy. It's like the lows are really low. When he's bad, he's really bad. And then most of the time he plays solid football. He's
serviceable.
But he has these games where he's just terrible.
And I think that now I have Emerson at green. But I think he has. Here's my problem. If he was a little bit faster, he has to be in position. He has to use his hands. He has to be physical. That's cool. If he was faster, man, he'd be one of the best corners in the league.
He is the defensive version of T. Higgins. He's a really good tier 2 wide receiver / corner.
Yeah,
really good. But they're both missing that speed element that would put them to the top put them into the first tier.
We talked about Newsome.
Both big guys.
Yeah.
Both good hands for a defensive back and wide receiver.
Yeah.
I look at them that way. But I can't go blue on him.
Yeah,
I'm green with that.
I think that's fine. But with Delpit, Delpit was on his way to a Pro Bowl season before the injury. And granted, if you want to say the injury concerns and he got paid, that contract might not be right. They put him in the yellow.
Now, I don't think the PFF grades didn't have him as a Pro Bowl season.
I thought the first 5 games
he was
played,
fantastic. The first couple, then it kind of
first 5 he was elite. Then it was like, oh.
But
so you'd put him as green.
I think Delpit's a green, and then if you want to tell me that Newsome you have concerns about still, I'll put him in the yellow. I just think pink's the wrong category.
But Delpit's had a lot. No, I agree, but I'd put him in yellow. I just think he's had so many injuries.
He's had the Achilles heel. He missed a year.
Yeah.
He's missed some games. He missed some games last year.
What I saw from Delpit in 2023, though, before the injury at the end, which was a freak injury, by the way. And granted, not every injury is the same. I don't think you could tag everyone who gets hurt injury prone because there are different categories, different ways you can get hurt. But I thought he was playing really well for the most part last season. And I understand that's not the majority of his career.
That's why you can't.
It was a smaller portion, but he's young, and I'm maybe projecting a little ahead, and that's not part of the project, this research project, so maybe that's my bad. But he was on the up and up, and he's still young, so I think or maybe he's a yellow now, and we'll get to a green.
Because he's only played at the green level for half a season in his career, I can't put him there until he does it more consistently.
I'm willing to do. I thought Earl said something the other day about injuries that I agree with. Like now, just knowing how football is, and they playing 17 games and still got preseason games and all this other stuff, and given the wear and tear that they have in college, you got to play 3 years. If you can get 10 games out of a guy, I'm like, okay. If you can get 12 games out of a guy, out of 17, you like, oh, I'm ecstatic about that. If you get 14 out of 17, I start to look at that as like, yeah, that's excellent because for me, like Denzel Ward.
Yeah,
I know Denzel Ward gonna miss 4 games automatically.
He misses 3, 4. But yeah, I don't agree with the 10 part of that. To me, 10 is.
I think 13, 14.
10,
if you're saying a guy's gonna play 13, 14, yeah, I can live with that. As long as he's playing at the end of the year and the 3, 4 in the middle of the season. And it also depends on the position, right? I mean,
So offensive lineman, you want more durability.
Yeah.
Like, you would like to see those guys out there more. But when you're talking about, it just seems like, especially with defenders, like safeties and corners where they got to hit people, it's too much stuff. Like, they can either have head injuries, stingers, shoulders, and they have soft tissue things like calves and hamstrings. So if I get a receiver or a corner that give me 14, I'm going to take that.
I do think I don't disagree with what you're saying. I just think it's a really difficult way to build a team if you're counting 3, 4 injuries on everybody. And I know you take that into account when you're putting a team together, but you need some guys that you know are going to be there. And durability
There's no guarantee in anything,
with anything,
right?
Yeah.
But yes, if you have too many guys that are consistently missing chunks of time, that's a problem. The better the guy is, the more of that you're willing to put up with. But if you have a team full of guys that are consistently missing time, that's not great.
Yeah, you can't. But I look at the way that I don't think this is an anomaly last year. I think you were going to have, it may not be the Browns next year, but you're going to have a team that is just decimated.
Right. Oh, it happens every year.
When it's all said and done, for all the talk about injuries, for all the talk about, backup quarterbacks, which was obviously a huge story for us, in the end, 12 of the 14 teams that made the playoffs, their quarterback played almost every game, if not every game. And the only teams that didn't were the Browns, and there was, I can't remember the other team now.
The Rams, because Brett Ripon or whoever it was.
No, but Stafford played almost every game. He played like 14, 15 games last year. There was one other team that had a quarterback that missed like half the season. Who was another? I feel like I got to look at the playoff teams.
I don't think so.
I think there might have. Was there one other?
I don't.
But either way, every team that won at least one playoff game, their quarterback played almost every game, if not every game this year.
I thought about you. I was on Jonathan Peterson this morning on the radio, and I thought about, we did this topic, and this is off topic, but maybe we'll talk about it later on in the week. Where are you monitoring what the Pittsburgh Steelers may do? Like, there's a couple of options where I feel like, are you scared? Like, not scared, but you're like, okay, Justin Fields is an upgrade. I feel like, Russell Wilson is an upgrade.
I think a bag of rocks is an upgrade at quarterback for the Steelers.
And if that's an upgrade and they already went to the playoffs, like, I was looking around and I'm like, that's scary. Kirk Cousins to the Steelers?
No,
that's scary, bro.
Yeah.
Now, they what I'll say, though, is Mike Tomlin, he's not going to have a pass-first offense.
No.
He's just never going to have that.
No.
And they're going to be a running team. So I actually think that even though Kirk Cousins is the best of that bunch, I actually think Fields and even Russell Wilson maybe kind of fit that team mobile. Better.
Yeah. I just think
I don't know I still don't. If I was grading Justin Fields, I'd still put him as a yellow. I still don't know what he is.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think he's had particularly good coaching until this year. He had better talent around him this year. He really hadn't had good talent around him until this year. I still don't know if he's good. I don't if you're ranking Justin Fields, where do you rank him?
He's in the giant unknown. We talked about this last week. We actually did it.
Yeah.
You must have not been there that day, G, but we did. Would you be scared if Justin Fields went to the
I'm not scared. I'm not scared.
I would be if I was looking at it, if they got Russell Wilson. Now, Russell was a little divisive or whatever the case may be, and he actually had a pretty good year last year.
Yeah.
His stats were fine.
His stats were fine. But what I would be scared of is, all right, I already know I like Warren, and I thought Harris played well.
Yeah.
He
played his best football second half of last year.
The second half, and they got Pickens, and they got 2 pass rushers.
And they got Deontay Johnson.
And they got Deontay Johnson. And so it's like, and Kirk Cousins, he going to be steady. He's, he going to come in and work. He going to come in. He's a calming presence. And Mike Tomlin could be a tyrant on the sideline with his dog tags and his aviator glasses. And I don't like that, man. If you telling me you got to go to Pittsburgh and beat Kirk Cousins the last game of the season to make the playoffs, that's 50-50.
Any of those 3 quarterbacks make the Steelers anywhere from decent to way better.
Yes.
I mean, their quarterback situation was atrocious last year. Oh, they were the other team that made the playoffs. That was it.
That was it.
Oh,
it was
yeah,
the Steelers. Right. That's why. Maybe that's why I said
that's
that.
Right.
Right.
That's right. That sparked something in your head. So, they were the other team. I think we're all hoping they're going to do a Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph competition.
I hope they sign Pickett to a lifetime extension.
Love it. Hey, let's see. Don't be Duke a knee jerk. Just see what you got.
He needs at least 6 years. He needs at least 6 years. He needs 10 years in the league to prove he can play.
I'm going to say I think their best chance is Russell Wilson. Because I think Kirk Cousins is going to go back to Minnesota when it's all said and done.
I do. I think they do.
And right now, the rumor is Justin Fields is going to go to Atlanta. Whether that turns out to be true or not, I don't know.
I like that better fitting spot too.
It's a better
from
spot for
Georgia.
Justin
It's
Fields
in the
too.
dome.
They got good talent.
Nice
Atlanta.
young pieces. Well, that Russell Wilson.
If by the way, let me ask you this one: if the Steelers could get Russ, Fields, Cousins, and you, G. Bush, and you, Mike, and you, Earl, you are the one who picks which of those 3 they get. So obviously you take the guy you think is going to be the worst. Who would you pick? Earl, start with you. Who would you give the Steelers if you had to give them one of those 3?
Between Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Kirk Cousins?
Yeah.
Probably Justin Fields.
Okay.
I kind of would lean. I would lean that direction.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I'm out on Fields, so I'd give him Fields.
You see, I'm not sold on Fields, but I'd give them Russ. Because I think Russ is listen, Cousins is the best. I don't think any of us were going to give him Cousins. Even though he's the oldest. Or him and Russ are pretty
I think
close.
Russ is a little older.
Oh, he's a little older?
I think it's 36, 35.
But I could see, Russ, even though his numbers were fine, he's not the player he was.
No.
And he could completely go off the cliff this year.
Yeah.
Where I think Fields with a smart coach. Now, the Steelers have a smart head coach. I don't know that they got a smart offensive guy.
I think Arthur Smith and Justin Fields is like oil and water.
Oh, that's right. Arthur Smith's their play caller.
It'd be a terrible fit. That would just be a catastrophe.
I just kind of hunched that Russell Wilson could really go off the cliff this year.
Well, Chad Johnson said it. He said he thought he had some inside information. He was on with Shannon Sharp. He said he's been hearing Russell Wilson in Pittsburgh for a long period of time.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
I'm telling you, I think, Steelers, listen to me. Thank you. I got a great trade for you. Go right now to the Falcons and go get Desmond Ridder. I think that's your answer. And have a 3-way competition between Pickett, Ridder, and Mason Rudolph. You'll be all fine.
No. Let's at the ante.
Yeah.
Call the Giants too and offer a 4th-round pick for Daniel Jones.
Yeah, actually.
Because you know what's better than 2 quarterbacks?
Well, Daniel Jones.
4 quarterbacks.
Daniel Jones would actually be an upgrade over any of those guys.
See, now the problem is if they do get Russ, you know what they're going to, the polls is going to be, is Deshaun Watson, where does he rank in the division?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
They get any of those guys.
Anyway, yeah.
That's
like, what happened with Pickett, Rudolph, Wilson.
Listen, I'm going to just tell you, I hope with all of my being, I hope hard sometimes. Like, I hope he comes out and balls out. Like, I wish for everything he give me 4,200. Just give me the 4,200 and like in 27 touchdowns or something. Like, bro, if you give me that, we can roll with that. I just do not want to go down this narrow pathway, down this hallway again. Like, they're saying he's throwing the football right now, right?
No, he's supposed to start next month.
Next
So
week
ahead
or
of
two.
schedule, yeah.
Now, here's the thing, though. I'm Duke and Knee-Jerk. I thought you was already throwing.
And Mary Kay was the one who reported it earlier this week that he was throwing. Or going to be throwing.
I thought he was already ready to go.
Nope.
Well, we'll find out. I know we're going.
Well, listen.
We'll talk about that tomorrow too.
It's fine that he's, it's early enough. I mean, it's still a long way to go. All right, Earl, what do we got?
Before we move on, in a perfect world, the Steelers GM will kind of like lose all of his common sense and football knowledge, and he will call Andy Berry and say, how can I acquire P.J. Walker to be my starting quarterback?
Yes.
Because I believe that his best days is ahead of him.
Yes.
I think Earl's on to something here.
It is.
We would give up P.J. Walker, guys. Hopefully I can speak for the rest of you, for a second-round pick. No problem.
How about a third?
You know what? I'm getting greedy.
Yeah,
You're right.
We'll get
third-round pick for P.J. Walker.
And I would Uber him over to the airport.
Yes.
I get it. Matter of fact, I drive to Pittsburgh.
How about we give him a 7th-round pick back, along with P.J. Walker?
Fine.
P.J. and a 7th for a third-rounder.
That sounds like the old Madden. When the Madden was dumb.
You just do any trade you want?
Yeah,
All right, Earl, what's up next?
All right, so we talked about, before we get into this next topic, man, let me remind you to get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. So yesterday, both The Athletic and ESPN was given the task of choosing one player per team that may be a casual salary cap casualty. Mm-hmm. And when it came to the Cleveland Browns, a guy that we talked about earlier in the show, Nick Chubb, $16 million cap hit. Both of those outlets selected Nick Chubb to be the guy that would be the casualty. Do you see it that way?
I mean, he's the only who else would you pick? Now, these articles are not saying he's going to be a cap casualty. They're saying he's the most likely guy to be a cap casualty. And I just don't know who else there is, because all the other guys who are making good money that you would prefer to cut,
Jack Conklin,
have
for
guaranteed.
example.
You can't cut Jed Wills. You can't cut Jack Conklin.
You just did the deal. You've restructured Batonio and Teller. You can't do those. You're not cutting Amari Cooper. You need more receivers, right?
Yeah.
David Njoku got a new deal. He ain't going nowhere.
No.
They'll probably mess around with Deshaun Watson's deal, but I don't know how much that's going to free up any money.
Nobody else. There's nobody else. Everybody else is either a guy you have to keep, and the only other guy you could say is getting outrageously paid is really Conklin and Wills, and you can't cut those guys. Yeah. So there's no. So
it actually cost the Browns more money to cut Jack Conklin than it is to keep him.
Right.
And the thing with Nick Chubb, and I'm going to preface everything by saying this: I feel very confident the Browns will rework and restructure a deal with Nick Chubb, and he will not be cut. But if they were to cut him, they save $12 million. It's only a $4 million dead cap hit. He's due to make about $16 million. So I was, more than anything else, I was shocked by the reaction of this online yesterday, because it's a conversation we've been having here, and we've been arguing with people online who have reacted to clips from this show since before last season.
The Browns, even before Nick Chubb's injury, were never going to take a $16 million cap hit on a running back.
And we talked about this
to do it.
going into the season, prior to the injury.
Right. That doesn't
could
mean
this be Nick Chubb's last year because of the contract? This has been something that's not new. We've all known this was coming.
I get why people are outraged, because it's Nick Chubb. I get it.
I just was surprised that people thought this was new information.
It's not. But people, you don't understand, right? teams, mostly front office guys like Andrew Berry, don't get emotionally involved or
try not
with players. Try not to. The fans are emotionally involved. Nick Chubb, if you did a poll of every Browns fan, not just the people watching our show, but every Browns fan, who is your favorite player on the Browns? Nick Chubb would win in a landslide, I think, over Myles Garrett, anybody.
He's one of the most beloved players not just now, it's the history of the Browns.
No doubt.
I would say his popularity among Browns fans rivals almost any player's popularity among their own fan bases as well.
Yes.
Certainly any non-quarterback.
Yeah, like
without a doubt. So it's hard to shut off that emotion. And when you see an article that says Nick Chubb is going to be a cap casualty, well, you've already gone into that article if you're going to read it, assuming they're saying the Browns should cut Nick Chubb. Yeah. And every time you read those articles, nobody ever writes, oh, the Browns got to get rid of Nick Chubb like he's an albatross. No. It's always, hey, the Browns need to figure this out. Nick Chubb's got to make his decision. I think every article about Nick Chubb potentially being cut always has the caveat, I think he'll be back with the Browns, but here's what they got to do.
And so I just couldn't understand this.
This is why I'm going to, listen, I use these examples as real life. When they tell you, don't talk about politics, they're like, well, no, like, this is a political thing. Like, there are certain people that have such a rabid fan base that there are certain people that are still upset at the Browns for cutting Bernie Kosar. To this day.
Yes.
And if you don't, and we don't have nothing. Like, we don't have championships to hold on to. We got a bunch of ghosts and different things that we've done bad. So people don't get over nothing. So they're like, I don't like that you got rid of Bernie. People still don't like that the Guardians don't spend money because they had all these players and they feel like they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And you got people to this day that won't go to the games. You change the colors. You change this. They don't like it. But the Nick Chubb thing is even worse because guess what?
He's Nick Chubb.
They saw him get his leg. They saw the injury, and they saw him sitting there crying, and they saw him how much work he puts in. And they're like, oh, no, I don't care what it costs. Like, if you can't, Andrew Berry there's no way he can get rid of him.
It's the way he ended. It's the type of guy he is. Like, there's never been a bad word about the player. Ever. And I can't. If there was a bad word or something bad about Nick Chubb, it would be the most stunning story in the history of Cleveland.
Yeah.
I would be blown away. I couldn't even, fathom anything negative being said about. By the way, it was. I don't know if anybody saw this, but it was another cool thing with Nick Chubb. Joe Bitonio was doing some sort of. He was at a high school or maybe middle school. I don't remember, but he was this was a couple of weeks ago. He was working with some football players, some kids, right? It was and it was really cool. And in the middle of it, he FaceTimed Nick Chubb.
Right.
To say hi to the kids. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw that.
That was really cool. And the kids Nick Chubb got a kick out of it, and he got a good kick out of it, and the kids. He's everything you want in a player, and he's everything you want in a representative of your team. He plays his ass off. There's no showboating. There's nothing, literally nothing not to like about Nick Chubb, and that's why there's so much emotion involved in this.
They tried to say that before the year that they was going to have to, take some of Amari Cooper's money.
Yeah.
Amari Cooper because of his demeanor, he plays injured. He broke the record for all-time yards and catching the football, and then they had to back off Amari Cooper because people started saying, "Oh no, Amari Cooper's back too. What are you talking about?"
And Amari Cooper doesn't have this lifelong connection with Brown fans.
It is 2 years.
That Nick Chubb does.
And even with the Chubb situation, at Andrew Berry's end of the season media availability, he was asked about Nick Chubb, and he said, "We're going to have to figure that situation out." So the big picture is, I think we're all in agreement. Nick Chubb's going to be in a Browns uniform next year.
Most
it just won't be at a $16 million cap hit.
And it shouldn't be. And I think the perfect solution is to extend him, keep the guaranteed money lower,
and incentives.
And a ton of incentives that he can make good money.
And you come out and you say, we have just signed a contract with Nick Chubb that effectively makes him a Brown for life.
That would be a great PR move and probably a great football
It's a win-win for everybody in that sense. Yeah. The back-end potential fallout of any long contract, not just Nick Chubb, is he goes off a cliff, he's not the same player, but if it's incentive-based and low guarantees, then you eat that money.
You still have to address that position with a young player.
But you eat that money for a guy like Nick Chubb, who you hope can get back. And also, Bull, real quick, if Nick Chubb lives up to what we think he can come back to be, whether it's 85, 90, 100%, 110%, if he's, Adrian Peterson, like Israel mentioned, he can make even more money. So
entirely possible.
It's kind of a win-win for both.
I think the only way Nick Chubb is not back, and I don't think this, I'll be surprised if this is the case, but is that if he just refuses to negotiate. I'd be very surprised by
Or if they lowball him and say, we're going to offer you $5 million or something for 1 year.
Yeah. Well, that's what Bull's saying, if he won't renegotiate.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think they'll be, I don't know. I think the smart money is that they'll find a comfortable in-between to keep him and make him a lifetime Brown.
So
that's all we hope, because nobody wants to see him in another uniform.
What's the percentage chance? Don't say that.
God.
But, G, what's the percentage chance? 90, 95, 80, something less, that Nick Chubb finishes his career as a Brown? What would you put
it's 100%. Like, he going to get that Udonis Haslem. Like,
Udonis Haslem had the greatest deal of all time.
To me, look, he would move right from where he's doing right now to somewhere in the front office.
I think the only question mark is this year. If they extend him now and they come to an agreement, well, by the time that contract's over, he's so old that he's either retiring or he's going to make so little money that they'll just keep him like Frank Gore, like in that type of role. Or where he's like the number 2 back. He'll be he'll be what Kareem Hunt was last year down the line.
So then what do you think
I'll say 90%, because I think there's a slight chance he could
I'm going to go 90. I'm going to go
95.
I'm going to go 95, and that 5% is simply Nick Chubb says,
I want to play somewhere else or whatever.
Which I can't imagine him saying that, but I'm not renegotiating.
But we don't know. In the end, we don't know. We don't know him personally.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I'd be shocked once again. That's a 95% confidence.
Yeah. But
you add all three together, and that's what,
95.
But then again, I will say this. I always thought Jarvis Landry would end his career here. And in one season, it raveled.
You never know.
And he was so bitter about the fact that they told him to take a pay cut, and he was like, well, I was here when nobody wanted to be here.
Was Stump his guy, right? They were super tight, weren't they?
They were.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe that could be what leads to the 5%. But I would be, at the end of the day, absolutely shocked if Nick Chubb is not a Brown on some sort of restructured deal.
You said you had a question, Earl.
Question and a comment, but the comment first, because I'm reading the comments in the chat. Shout out to the chat. Somebody said if AB was to cut Nick Chubb, he might as well turn in his badge now. Somebody else said he'll be ran out of town. We talk about the emotional ties to Nick Chubb, right?
Yeah.
And you just peep how the show started. Me and Bull going back and forth about a difference of opinion about Nick Chubb.
Yeah.
I think when I say he's a blue chip player, I've talked about this before. I view Nick Chubb not just as a football player, but the epitome of what you want this organization to be. And so the emotional ties might have me overrating him in some people's eyes, but this is how I see this dude. And when you talk about these articles, we got to understand, man, content creators today, I learned this in Ohio Media School. I don't think content creators today are just putting out content for the sake of. They do what I do. They try to emotionally trigger you. So if you read Nick Chubb, Cap Casualty, you automatically pissed off because you know how much you love him personally, you know how much the city loves him, and then you know how much, how great of a player he is. So anytime that you see anything like that with him in particular, it is going to tug on the heartstrings a little bit. Right. And it just goes to show who he is and how important he is.
Yeah, he's a blue chip human being.
And
no
that
doubt
is
about
why
it.
the Cleveland Browns will play in Brazil against the Philadelphia Eagles week 1. The storylines is too good.
It's looking more and more likely. Yeah. Peter King reported that he feels really good about that. So,
speaking of running backs, Earl, you got something you wanted to hit on with Jim Brown. Let's go to that.
Yeah, but before we go to that, let me remind you again that to get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. So before we do the Black History moment, kind of seen this elsewhere, wanted to have the conversation with you all, and I think this is going to get spirited. The great, late Jim Brown. Yesterday's Black History moment was about Jackie Robinson, and we talked about how Jackie Robinson jersey is retired across Major League Baseball. Should the same thing be the case for Jim Brown?
So, just for some background, the NFL is the only sport of the Big Four that does not have a number retired across the league. Obviously, baseball has Jackie Robinson, 42. Hockey has Wayne Gretzky, 99. And basketball has Bill Russell, which just recently happened. I think it was this year?
No, last year.
Or last
this
year
or last year.
Number 6. The NFL does not have that number. I'll start with you, Mike. Should they retire Jim Brown's number?
So when Earl sent the question,
Yeah.
I had never really thought of this before. I never thought
Yeah.
NFL. Jersey retirements, I think, are cool, but the big picture, I hadn't really ever put thought to it. So you go back, and you know Jim Brown is a football player, obviously one of, if not the greatest running backs to ever live, an all-time great player on the field, did things that no one else at that era was doing.
Yeah.
His bio, his stats speak for themselves. But to be in the class, to have your jersey retired across the league, I think, and I want to phrase this correctly, I think you have to have a pristine overall resume, and there can't be black marks of any kind to have someone be like, that guy shouldn't be represented across the entire league. And when you look at Jim Brown's personal history, he has quite a few run-ins with the law, and I know some of the charges were dropped, dismissed, but he certainly has a checkered past. And at the end of the day, I was going through some of the charges that he was charged with, not all convicted, but he was charged with murder at least once and maybe twice, depending on how you perceive a certain charge in 1885.
Did you
Or
say
1987, sorry. Or 1978, excuse me.
Yeah.
I have all these written down.
Yeah.
I just think with his checkered past, I don't think he could be a guy the entire league honors to the same capacity Bill Russell, Jackie Robinson, and Wayne Gretzky are. It's not because of the player. It's because of his off-the-field run-ins with the law. I just don't think you could have – I think it's right how the Browns have his number retired.
Yeah.
But league-wide, I just don't think you could have that kind of past off the field and have it be something that the entire league honors moving forward.
Go ahead.
I think
Fair or not, that's just how I feel.
like many, there's a checkered past, right? Now, I always go to this, and I always give people the way you perceive things, right? People talk about Michael Jordan being a great leader, and then you go back and you look at it and be like, well, it was how good it was a leader. He had let Dennis Rodman go to Vegas and told Phil Jackson he was going to do it. He didn't back Scottie Pippen, who was the second best player in the contract dispute. He was notorious for fighting with Steve Kerr. And Steve Kerr was the nicest dude in the world. He talking about his
he was flawed too.
Yeah. So he's a flawed guy. But Michael Jordan's impact on the game, it will.
But his number's not retired.
It's not retired. I think eventually it will get there. I think that's a thing that'll happen.
Yeah.
Just like I can look at George Washington, right? And I can say, well, George Washington owned slaves, but George Washington was the father of this country. He helped put in the Declaration of Independence. He helped it with the Constitution. His impact can't be quantified based on just one or two things. You got to take the totality. So to say, if I say, all right, well, we got to get rid of George Washington, people will say, well, you really can't do that. You can't tell the history of America without George Washington. I don't think you can't listen and say the story of the NFL without Jim Brown. Yes, he had a checkered past, but he also did some very good things and was one of the first people to be with Bill Russell and Muhammad Ali and the civil rights and pushing for the poor people and his American program and developing and redeveloping some of the black men in the young neighborhoods that they don't get into some of the same things that he did.
Right.
So I think, if you say NFL is synonymous with a couple people, and that's why I, love football pride in Ohio. You got Mary Motley, you got Paul Brown, you got Jim Brown. You can't tell the story of the NFL without those guys. So yes, I do think they should retire his jersey. But I also think that they should bring to light some of his mistakes as well as some of his great things that he's done. I think everyone has a past, and I think it's all about how you share and the lesson you get from it.
By the way, speaking of former presidents, no, I'm not talking about Trump. Believe it or not. There's a clip from a few years ago of Chris Mad Dog Russo, who now is on my nerves most of the time, and Chris Christie, who I'm not a giant fan of, but at least he's keeping it real now, of the two of them debating the top 10 presidents of all time from a few years ago. It's hilarious. They're talking about it like they're players, like they're baseball players.
Yeah, right.
It's really funny. Number 2 on presidents, one of my all-time favorite presidents who gets no recognition is John Adams, the second president of the United States, and he did not have any slaves.
Right.
He did not believe in slavery. He was anti-slavery, and in fact, John Adams wanted language in the Constitution to abolish slavery, and because there were so many Southerners, they weren't going to be able to get the Constitution passed if it was in there. But he was really wanted to do it. But anyway, just some information on John Adams. Yeah. He also, by the way, did you know that John Adams and Thomas Jefferson, the third president of the U.S., both died the exact same day?
Did not know that.
Exact same day.
Idea.
Now, to circle back now to Jim Brown. Jim Brown is a complicated question.
Yeah.
It's very complicated. He is the ultimate mixed bag. Okay? So, there's a lot of good with Jim Brown, and there's some bad with Jim Brown. Now, the facts are he was never convicted of a serious crime. He was never convicted of a felony. That's a fact. Was he accused? Was he arrested? Yes. Was he, arrested with, while being with women? Did it happen? It's not like all these things he got arrested, months later or whatever. It was So it's too many years ago for me to know what really happened then. We weren't doing sports talk when Jim Brown was getting arrested. So I don't know. So that is a part of the picture, and that makes me hesitant a little bit. My first reaction, though, actually was no at first.
Right.
And not even because of that, even though that factored in a little. It was because my first reaction, because I didn't remember that Bill Russell and Wayne Gretzky had their numbers retired. And my initial reaction was that Jackie Robinson was the only player in sports that had his number retired. I didn't remember the other two.
I knew Russell. I didn't know Gretzky.
I didn't either. But I looked it up once I saw that text from Earl. And to me, Jackie Robinson is in a group, not a group. He's by himself.
He's the Patrick Mahomes of QB tiers. One of one.
Right. He's one of one because the color barrier was broken in baseball before it was broken in football and basketball and hockey. And while Larry Doby broke the color barrier in the American League and should get more recognition, he still had the lead-in from Jackie Robinson. What all the players in the 40s and eventually the 50s, what all the black players had to go through in those days was awful. But it was all, for all of that, I shouldn't say this, I don't know this definitively, but the fact that Jackie Robinson went through it first at least gave those other guys somewhat of a playbook. He was the first.
Yeah.
The first is always the hardest. And so in my mind, Jackie's number's retired. That should be the only number retired in sports. But Wayne Gretzky his number was retired because he's the greatest hockey player of all time. Bill Russell's number was retired partly because he was one of the greatest basketball players of all time, and also because he was a major civil rights advocate. And while he was obviously not the first black player in basketball, he was the first super famous black player in basketball. What he had to endure as a player was awful, and what he was as both a human being and a person was, as a player, was fantastic. And so, when I look at Jim Brown, I'm like, well, Jim Brown is kind of in a way the Bill Russell of football. He wasn't the first black player in the NFL, but he's the most famous first black player in the NFL.
And one of the first black players to speak openly. You could
watch about
race. You could talk. He debated the governor, I believe, of it was either Georgia, Mississippi, or Alabama. Debated him on live television, and I went back and I was astounded at how intelligent he was and showed so much poise.
Right.
even when this guy was sitting up here saying the craziest racist thing in the world, but he was highly intelligent, acting.
So in the end, I would say yes, not that he's without flaws. Listen, Martin Luther King is considered the greatest civil rights leader in the history of the world, or certainly the history of America. I don't, the world as well. And he wasn't without flaws. There's a lot of great people in this history of this country that did some not great things. But sometimes, I don't even want to say overlook. Sometimes you got to say, hey, I'm going to honor this guy and love everything about him, but I'm going to honor this guy. So in the end, I'm a yes on I'm retiring 32 for Jim Brown. Go ahead, Earl.
So just a couple things. I want to make sure that I'm careful with what I say and how we have this conversation. I do think this is a great spirited conversation, but I want to give proper credit to Creative Juice because he had a comment that's about to spark what I'm about to say. We're talking about some of the allegations against Jim Brown, right? Now, I'm not saying if all of them are true or not, but we do know that this man played a significant role in the civil rights movement, right? He was a civil rights activist. Boy, you're a fan of the show Godfather of Harlem. And I remember a couple seasons ago when Malcolm X's wife, Betty, got the letter about Malcolm sleeping with Elise. And he says sometimes they would tell lies on me just to discredit me. Is there any chance that some of these things that he had alleged to be done can be in the same light? Because he was so vocal at that time.
100% true. I mean, listen, I'm not the authority, of course, on the black experience of the 1940s and 1950s. I'm not the authority on the black experience of 2024. But it's obvious that in those times, black Americans, especially those who were vocal for civil rights, were railroaded. Now, does that mean Jim Brown is completely innocent?
No.
I have no idea. It's so long ago, I don't think any of us know, which is why I ultimately, and in the end, with a racist, clearly at that time, a racist court system, Jim Brown still was never convicted of a serious crime, of a violent crime. So I'm going to go with that and say, I don't know what happened, so I'm retiring the number.
I think sometimes this is why I have I have a passion for history. I think some people, that's why when people say get rid of this book and get rid of this book, I kind of shudder because I'm like, if I'm a black person and I can understand that, yes, Washington and Jefferson had slaves. Some of them fathered multiple children. In the case of Jefferson, if I can understand that, yes, that was I think a crime against humanity. I also can say, without those people, I would be sitting here where I am today. So you kind of have to, you have to look at certain things. And then I always look at it this way too. If you do some things in your past, how have you changed as a man, right? I'm sure Jim Brown in his conversations with the youth, he tells them like, look, I did some things that, hey, I'm not very proud of, but it's all about turning a new leaf and being about what you are today. And I think in America, that's the best thing about America is like you can have redemption. Like there's no such thing. Michael Vick had redemption. There's people in our country that have gone to jail, paid their debt to society, came out and did great things. So I think that's one of the situations.
All right, so G, what you just said, I'm speaking directly to you, right? You a spiritual brother. That's called like being a disciple, right? That's what he was. Because like my grandmother used to teach me all the time, like all of God's disciples was gangsters. They was not in the church. Meaning you got to go through some stuff. You actually got to be out here in the trenches making mistakes, trial and error in order to go back and teach and to educate. If you've never done anything wrong, if you've never been in no hard spot, how in the hell can you go to somebody else and try to tell them, hey, this is what you shouldn't do if X, Y, and Z occur? I think a lot of times, and when I'm on a set, I speak to this point all the time, we forget that athletes are humans. And it pisses me off when somebody puts this unrealistic expectation that they are role models. 99% of the people don't know these people personally. And I just feel like we all got flaws.
You get pissed off that people are role models? They call them role models?
Yeah, because
Well, they are role models. That doesn't mean they're perfect. Role model, everybody's flawed.
But here's why. I'm going to tell you why. And I talked about this on my first ever episode. We all got our own opinion. We all grew up different ways. I was raised on how can somebody be your role model that you've never met one-on-one, that you've never had a personal conversation with, that never taught you anything. I tell people all the time, my father was my role model. I don't need Brett Favre, Steve McNair, Deion Sanders to be my role model. I just think that often, man, we forget we are all humans. All of us are flawed. All of us has made mistakes. And I get it. The perception, public perception is different. And it all depends, like, some of us are spiritual, some of us are not, right? And so depends on how you was raised and how you was brought up will always determine how you go about these things. The things that he was accused of, like, depending on what you believe, there is no difference between him being accused of assault than me and you going into a corner store and stealing some candy. Because once you get to the higher powers door, we're going to be judged the same way.
Well, I'm not a religious person.
That's why I said some of us are and some of us not. So this conversation is healthy.
I mean, robbing a grocery store and beating up a woman, if that's what happened, is not the same thing. I don't look at it that way.
I think G know where I was going with that.
I don't think most people look at it that way. But
I think I kind of even look at it, and I try to look at it from a standpoint of even what McNugget said. Like, I think when you signal people out and when you say that's the example of what you got to do to get, like, your number retired, I think you know, some people are a little at arm's length because of the fact of, you know, you don't want, when you do that, you promoting, you on Mount Rushmore, you promoting everything they was about, the whole book.
And you're there forever too.
You're there forever.
Right.
So it's not like they can take it off or take it back. So people are like, okay, well, let me really think about this. And I think there's a reason why the NFL thinks about things like that. Like,
sure,
the NFL came out and made a stance about Colin Kaepernick back in the day. Mm-hmm. And then they had to come back and retract it after George Floyd happened and was like, you know what, we should have probably thought about this a little better. And I think the NFL, more than any other group of people, the NFL is the most popular league. The MLB has made different political moves or moves with steroids or keeping people out the Hall of Fame. I just think the NFL is like, all right, well, if we ain't got to step in it, we ain't going to step in it.
Yeah.
They like to avoid that.
They would like to avoid that.
At the end of the day, real quick, I think Bull kind of said it best. Jim Brown might be in all sports, not just football, like the ultimate mixed bag of what you want to pick and choose to highlight, sure, because he has the highest of highs on the field. As a civil rights activist, the summit here in Cleveland, I mean, the iconic picture with Jim Brown and Muhammad Ali, like, down the street. Mm-hmm.
And
tremendous steps forward.
And none of us know the truth about the off-the-field stuff.
Exactly. And then
we don't know what's real, what's true, what's not.
You could read it. I was reading an article this morning when I was looking this up, and for 1 to 12 different reasons, charges were dropped. Juries acquitted him. He wasn't, like you said, ever convicted. But then you read some of the police reports, and it's like, that's open job, but then he wasn't convicted. Who the hell knows what to believe? It doesn't mean
this is the case, but I could argue that a police officer, certainly in 1950 whatever or 1960, how do I know he was being honest?
That's my point. I have no clue.
I don't know he's not being honest, but I don't know that he is either.
I have no clue what to believe.
But I will say this one more thing on this. If you don't look to anybody famous as a role model, that's fine, Earl. I get, and that's cool. If your dad's your only role model, I got no beef with that. But I don't think it's fair to say nobody should look at famous people as a role model, because a lot of people do, and a lot of kids look up to athletes, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think if you as an adult expect an athlete to live to a higher standard than yourself, that's unfair. But I don't think there's anything wrong with, like, when I was a kid, I looked up to guys in the radio business as sports radio was just starting when I was like a teenager, because I wanted to do what they did. My dad didn't do that. And so I looked up to them. So they were a role model. I didn't have higher standards for them as a human being. So I think you could separate that, like
I think it's a thing that it just comes with the territory.
Yes.
Like when you are a public figure, there are going to be people who don't have an infrastructure, who don't have a solid family foundation, and they will emulate the things you do and want to do things that you want to do. I think that's just it's just part of the game. Like, it just comes with being a public figure. Now, like you said, it's different if you're a grown person. Now, as you get grown and you get older and you figure things out, like you should be like, hey, it's okay. You tell your son, hey, you can admire his skills on the floor,
right?
But there are certain things that you shouldn't do when you become older.
Right. Yes.
That he did.
And we saw an All-Star weekend, like Sabrina Ionescu shooting against Steph Curry, and Caitlin Clark doing what she's doing. They're role models for thousands 100%. Of little girls across.
By the way,
that was
Steph Curry.
The best part of All-Star
weekend. Was the best part of All-Star weekend. And I think Kenny Smith is totally wrong saying she should have shot from the women's line. I love that she shot from the men's line.
We talked about that.
And by the way, she lost by one shot.
She finished tied with Dame Lillard and Kat with the second highest score in the entire contest.
It wasn't like if he had crushed her, then I could understand him maybe saying that.
Kenny Smith, to steal one of your terms?
Yeah.
Out of pocket.
Yeah, he was.
And he said
I don't think he had bad intent. I think people are accusing him of being like sexist. I don't think he was being sexist. I just think he's wrong.
Yeah,
she wanted to beat him.
I think
playing the same rules, and I get
both.
that.
Yeah, like look,
I've got a problem with that.
Yeah, I've got a problem with her using the women's basketball. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
did she use the women's basketball?
She used the women's basketball, but because she doesn't practice with it.
Yeah,
we don't have to get back to that.
No, but that's true. But I'd have no problem with her going further back.
It was even cooler. The fact she got a 26 from the men's line,
it's crazy.
Even more impressive.
It is impressive. All right, good stuff. What do we got next, Earl?
All right, before we move on, that was a great conversation, man. Don't forget to catch all the Ultimate Clothes on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show YouTube page, the Ultimate 216 Show, Ultimate Cavs, Ultimate Browns Show, and very soon the Ultimate Guardians Show, as they'll be getting started here in a couple weeks. I seen this online and I thought this was pretty cool. Who is your biggest imagine if they stayed athlete in the city of Cleveland? Amongst all three sports.
Who is this Dylan Powell, by the way? I don't know. I like the question, but
he's just a guy. I mean,
just
he's got 60,000 followers.
And this was sparked in our group chat when Tyvus kind of dropped it.
Right. Got more than I got. So
by the way,
but I mean, he's not like a super famous.
The blue check mark is now meaningless.
Yes.
It sucks. Not because I need to feel like I'm better than somebody else, but because you knew somebody had a level, at least some level of credibility as a legitimate source, and now it's just random, which I hate. Yeah. But enough about that. So he asked that question. Obviously, it was something that took off. It was a good question. So Earl asked us to pick our guys. Who did Tyvus say again?
He said
Ricky Davis.
Ricky Davis, which is absurd. That's
Ricky Davis.
That's Tyvus.
That's not even the best answer for that team, Earl.
Tyvus is just crazy.
That's not even the best answer for that team.
All right, G, who you got? Who's your guy? You want somebody else to go first?
Nah, okay. Listen, for me, it was Kyrie Irving, because I felt like
he was one of my two.
If he stayed, like, he could have ended his career out, and like, think about all the years that him and LeBron could have legitimately played together. And I thought the Warriors was coming to an end. I thought they just got frustrated and imploded. But when he left, it was kind of a thing where I believe truly that LeBron would have always stayed if Kyrie would have stayed. Because he didn't even want Dan Gilbert to trade him. If he would have stayed, I think he would have retired as a Cav and never went to Cav and went to the Lakers. But I think after that, he kind of thought like, well, it's kind of dry again. Here we go back to the old school Cav. So I'm going to go with Kyrie.
So
great choice.
I've heard from a couple people that LeBron was out no matter what after that season, which is why they traded Kyrie to try to get some assets back. So I'm not sure that necessarily plays, and that's part of the reason why I didn't pick Kyrie. He was my second choice. Manny Ramirez was my first choice. He left after the 2000 season, and he was phenomenal in Cleveland, obviously. And then his next 8 years in Boston were essentially copy and paste from his first 8 years in Cleveland, just as good.
Well, no, he was like, I mean,
well, he was even better, but
he
like,
wasn't great every year in his first 8 in Cleveland.
But I'm saying,
good.
you look at the overall total numbers.
He had just reached a peak at the end of his Cleveland time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like it was, okay, copy and paste is the right word, but like increasingly good, if not at that level.
He had reached the Fame level his entire time in Boston,
and he had reached that level in Cleveland, and then to see him go on to another team, and just stay at that level. And when he left, they were good the year after he left. They still won the AL Central. They lost in the ALDS, but then they catered, and they had 3 straight seasons sub 500. As Manny Ramirez is hitting 140, knocking in 145 runs, batting .315 with 35 home runs. And the Guardians, since he's left, Guardians, Indians, they still haven't replaced his bat. Like, we're still, to this day, looking for the next Manny Ramirez in the outfield.
The Indians
and this is 23 years ago.
It started with him. Well, actually, let me start. Like, it started with Albert Bell.
Don't steal my thunder, because it's my guy.
There you go.
Earl, you got somebody or no?
There you go, buddy. There you go.
I said
there you go, buddy.
One of them was
Carlos always doing
Boozer.
that.
Say it again, Earl. I apologize.
One of them was Carlos Boozer. My bad. I was working back here.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
I think like in the early, like when LeBron first was drafted, I was really interested to see how him and Carlos Boozer could mesh and play off each other just for a couple of years. But, of course, he finessed the Cavs to let him out his contract and went and signed a huge-ass contract with Utah. So
there is.
By the way, none of us picked the Browns player. Isn't that interesting? Because who would you pick?
Me and Earl talked about this.
Yo, we was upstairs this morning scratching our head. Boy, there was nobody.
I saw somebody on Twitter say Josh Gordon, but
he doesn't count.
Josh Gordon wasn't any good.
Doesn't count.
He just, he screwed up his career on it.
Bernie
league rules and he screwed up his
career.
Bernie
could be the
Bernie
Browns
won a Super Bowl like that same
right,
year.
but he wasn't the starting quarterback.
Yeah, but it hurt though.
So who's your answer, Bull?
My guy is a little before Manny. It was what G. Bush was getting to. It's Albert Bell.
Yeah.
Okay.
So those 90s
they were so fun.
Indians teams were fantastic, but for most of those 90s teams into early 2000, you had a lot like Albert left early in that run.
96.
He left after the 96 season. He signed as a free agent with the White Sox, and he retired. He was still great until the time he retired. He just had that messed up back, whatever it was. Albert Bell left, and then they traded Kenny Lofton, remember, for David Justice, who was good.
Yeah.
And then Kenny came back.
A little bit
They
later.
had Marquise Grissom for that 1 year. Grissom they traded because they got Kenny back.
And didn't they get Matt Williams?
Eventually Matt Williams. But then eventually Tomey left. Eventually Ramirez left. Eventually everybody left. Baerga, all those guys. But it all started with Albert Bell.
That's a good point.
Albert Bell was the first of those big stud hitters to go. And you never know. But in those days, the Indians' payroll was way more competitive compared to the rest of the league than it is now. Had they signed Albert Bell at the end of that season, the 96 season, maybe some of those other guys don't go. We'll never know. It's still hard to believe that team didn't. And their offense, even though Justice had a good year, their offense went downhill that next year. And they could have won a World Series that next year.
Yeah.
They came close a bunch of times, obviously, after that. But I think Albert Bell got the ball rolling in the wrong direction of stud hitters leaving the team.
And then they went through it just stuck. Like, I don't know why the ownership don't understand this. Then it went from the stud hitters to, all right, we got stud pitchers.
Well, yeah, and one of the guys I considered was Sabathia.
I thought about CC too. Yeah.
Cliff Lee.
Yeah.
Victor Martinez didn't sign back. And we were just like.
Well, they traded away Sabathia and Lee in consecutive years.
And they had one Cy
And
Young.
Sabathia, remember, they traded Sabathia and he went
to
crazy.
Milwaukee, right?
Yeah.
And then he had that
he was
insane
phenomenal with
stretch with Milwaukee. Then
almost carried them by himself.
Let me ask you a question, Bull. Of those late 90s, early 2000s Indians teams, at their peak, so not necessarily all when they were together in Cleveland, at their peak of their careers, who was the best hitter out of that bunch?
Oh, my God. I mean, that is so – let's see. So you got Tomey, you got Manny,
Bell.
you got Bell. You have
Baerga.
You have Sandy Alomar. He's not quite at that level.
But
you had Kenny Lofton.
And Lofton stayed hitting 300. And
I mean, if I had to choose, I think I'd say Manny.
Thank you. So I'm writing this question. Thank you.
But, I mean, you're splitting hairs between Manny, Tomey, and Bell. And now, Lofton, if you're saying, like, just the best hitter, it's probably Lofton.
You think so?
Just pure hitter.
Manny hit 315 for his career.
Lofton is the most underrated guy of those teams. How he got, and Lofton yelled at me once on the air.
Yes.
So
why?
He got mad at me once.
He's a little grumpy sometimes.
It was years ago. It was.
I met him at opening day last year.
Okay, remember when, and I thought these were good moves at the time, and I was wrong. The one-off season where the Indians signed Michael Bourne and Nick Swisher.
Yeah.
And we were going crazy because we loved both signings. Now, both those guys turned out to be crap.
Yeah.
They were both done. Well, Kenny Lofton, on opening day that year, I think it was that year, he was on the show with us. I remember we were doing the show at the Cleveland Bar. And we had Kenny on, and I compared Michael Bourne to Kenny. Now, he mistook what I was saying. I wasn't saying Michael Bourne was as good as Kenny. I said he was the same kind of player.
Kind of skill
He was
set,
a poor man, a very poor man's Kenny Lofton.
Built in the architect.
He took it as if I was saying Michael
archetype,
Bourne was as good as him, which clearly Michael Bourne, who had some nice years, was not.
Never Kenny Lofton.
He was in that ilk of player. He wasn't a power hitter. He was a speed, average field guy.
Now
he got mad because I don't know.
He thought you were comparing.
Now,
Michael
the
Bourne
Indians did have Marquise Grissom, and Marquise Grissom was a higher level than Bourne was. Like, Marquise Grissom had a lot of good years with Atlanta.
The Indians traded, after Bell left, they traded Lofton and I think a relief pitcher, I can't remember who it was, for Grissom and Justice.
Yes.
And then Justice, that was 90 before the 97 season.
Yeah.
And then the following offseason, Kenny Lofton came back as a free agent. I think he's on a 4-year deal.
Yeah.
And then they traded Grissom because they had Lofton back to, I think, Milwaukee in 97. And then, I can't remember if was Justice here in 98 now? Was he gone after 1 year?
I'll look it up. Hold on.
I think he was gone after 1 year. I think they traded him to the Yankees, maybe.
Yeah, you're right.
I think it was.
Not only when you talk about,
he might have been here a year and a half, Justice.
You wasn't even talking about hitting wise.
Yeah.
Think about up the middle. This might have been the greatest I've ever seen. Lofton in center.
Yeah.
Roberto Alomar at second base.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about Roberto Alomar.
Like some of the
Vizquel is the worst hitter of the bunch.
Yes.
And he was a solid hitter.
Yeah.
He's a singles hitter.
Right. And I look at.
I mean that was the greatest lineup I think I've ever seen when it was at its best, especially in that 95,
in that era,
96.
You had Eddie Murray coming off the bench.
Yeah.
You had
another Hall of Famer.
Dave Winfield was on that team.
Oh yeah.
Dave
Winfield.
I mean, didn't you sprinkle in? They still had guys like Richie Sexton who hit a bunch of home runs, or Brian Giles, or Paul Sorrento.
Good players.
Good players.
20+
home runs.
Yeah.
The whole lineup was like, we look at the Guardians.
They had every player except for Vizquel and Lofton would hit 20 home runs. Now they got nobody.
That's my point.
Crazy.
But if I had to choose in the end, I would say at their best, Manny. A little ahead of Tommy and Albert. But Kenny Lofton getting completely dismissed for the Hall of Fame so quickly is a mistake. And I don't think it's crazy to think that one day Kenny Lofton gets in the Hall of Fame. Tim Raines got in the Hall of Fame.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, Tim Raines is the same player.
They're similar players.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at Lofton stealing those bases, mixed with the Gold Gloves, I don't understand how you cannot. And he hit over 300.
And by the way, we don't talk about this with baseball as much because, like, with basketball and football, it's all about the championships, right? The Super Bowls. But Kenny Lofton, if you look at his career, wherever he went, the teams won.
Everywhere.
Was it coincidence, or did Kenny Lofton have something to do with it? He went to the Cubs 1 year, they won. He went to the Pirates 1 year, they were good. Like, everywhere he went, the team was good.
What do you think, real quick, and I know we got to move on in a sec.
Yeah.
What do you think Kenny Lofton, 17-year career, how many home runs do you think he finished with?
Kenny hit 12, 15 home runs 1 year.
42.
I want to say about 255.
130.
Oh, that's it?
Really?
How many RBIs, 17 seasons?
Oh, he didn't get a ton of RBIs because he was leading off.
I'm just asking for
17 seasons. I'll say he had 1,100, 1,150.
1,100. I want to say about 860.
781.
Wow.
Career batting average.
291.
Very close.
289.
299 on the dot.
299. Wow.
And how many stolen bases in his career?
More than everybody but Ricky Henderson.
590?
Stolen bases, 622.
Okay.
So.
How many Gold Gloves did he have?
Gold Gloves, 1, 2, 3 Gold Gloves.
Yeah.
I mean,
3 Gold Gloves. He finished second in Rookie of the Year voting. He was a top 15 MVP finisher 3 times and a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-time All-Star.
And
you look at some of his advanced
stats
good.
Yeah, really, really good.
And he was one of the only baseball players to ever have a signature Nike shoe deal.
Yes.
Like
his swag was off the charts.
Yeah, like him, Griffey. You don't get. That's why
Griffey is the swaggiest baseball player ever.
It's not even close. Not even close. Gee, don't even dare say that.
No. Griffey was like, King Griffey Jr. was so big, like he single-handedly had black people playing baseball.
I would argue Griffey is the only non-basketball player that is on the all-time swag list?
Like he's like there.
There's no football. Is there a football player on the all-time? Dion.
Yeah,
Dion. Yeah, all right, Dion's there. Yeah.
But Griffey.
But it's Griffey, Dion, and then it's basketball.
Then it's all basketball
Even
players.
the way he wore it, Griffey was the first dude to not have tight baseball pants that came down over his cleats.
Right.
He had signature Nike cleats. Like Griffey wore his hat backward, bro. The way he swung the bat was just so pretty.
I was
like,
gonna say
it looked like every time he was gonna hit a home run.
His swing is on the Mount Rushmore of just prettiest things in sports.
He did.
Like,
well, lefties just in general.
But his swing in particular.
His was great. Darryl Strawberry had a great swing.
Yeah, I like that.
In terms of righties, I think my favorite swing of all time is Frank Thomas. He had a great righty swing.
Because
I love Gary.
Sheffield's was good too.
I like Dante Bichette.
Oh yeah.
Craig Counsell?
Or Mickey Tettleton. Like, I love the way he used to hold the bat like this, bro. I'm like, how do you get the bat through the... Like,
well, do you remember Brett Butler? He used to hold the bat like the middle of the bat.
Oh, yeah.
He would be bunting. He did chop hits. He was,
I don't remember him.
Back in those days, guys actually bunted for hits. Now you don't really see that much, but...
We should do the Mount Rushmore of just prettiest sports things in the world.
Yeah.
In the history of sports.
But Griffey, I mean, everybody loved Ken Griffey Jr. And then he got traded to Cincinnati, and he was great his first year, and then he just couldn't stay off the injured list.
It was crazy. For me, he was like, I'm like, man, this dude, like, he was it. Like,
if he stayed healthy, is he in the conversation for greatest baseball players of all time?
100%.
Yeah,
he's already in that. He's one of the greatest baseball players ever, even with the injuries.
That's why it's so tough when, like, it's so hard when you talk about Bonds. Like, 'cause you got to think about it. Bonds had already won like 4 MVPs before the steroids. Prior to even getting big. Like, Barry Bonds was like, I used to feel like him and the Pittsburgh Pirates used to just play the Braves every day.
Right.
His numbers were silly.
When he was there, I mean, they had Bonilla. Their outfield was Barry Bonds, Bobby Bonilla, and Andy Van Slyke, which was a great outfield.
And then they had Terry Pendleton. Didn't he play third base?
He played some third base for them.
I liked it. I loved. I'm not gonna lie. My dad used to back in the day. The Indians were trash. He used to his hot stove teams. He used to take us all the time to Three Rivers to watch the Pirates.
And even before that, the '70s Pirates into the early '80s with Dave Parker and Willie Stargell. But anyway, we're getting off track here.
I know people are dying to hear a 70s Pirates commentary 40 years later. Oh, what's up?
Anyway, those are our guys,
man, the chat is really having fun with this. The chat been in a good mood, being goofy, amongst each other all day. I thought Carlos Boozer was a good one. CC Sabathia was a good one. Manny Ramirez. My heart still hurts that Manny did not retire with the Cleveland Indians / Guardians, but whatever the case may be. I feel like we missing something. I was trying so hard to find somebody with the Browns.
Giving some examples in the chat?
Let me go through and check. I was thinking hard on somebody with the Cleveland Browns, and I couldn't. Most of them are with the Indians. Go figure, right?
Yeah, well, in football, like the Browns in the last 25 years haven't had that many great players. And Phil Dawson. But it's not like they would have won anything with Phil Dawson.
And Joe Thomas didn't leave. He retired, so he doesn't care. It has to be someone who decided to leave.
I don't think this affected winning, but I gave you probably the best Browns player of the last 20 years, Joe Hayden.
And he had a productive career at Pittsburgh.
He was still good, and he went to the Steelers.
And
he was
crazy.
like you weren't here, obviously, Mike. Joe Hayden was the
man.
guy.
Yeah.
He was Nick Chubb before Nick Chubb in Cleveland.
But even bigger in a way because he was out at the Cavs games.
He showed up at everything.
He was out at the Indians games. He was Mr. Cleveland.
So what happened when he signed? Fill me in. What happened when he signed Pittsburgh?
The Browns cut him.
That wasn't that Sashi Brown's first big move.
Yeah, the Browns cut him, and I'm going to admit at the time I was like, well, I think Joe Hayden is kind of on the way out, but I was wrong.
I forgot. I'm disrespectful. I should have known this. Paul Warfield was the guy. The Browns, when the Browns traded Paul Warfield and he went to the Dolphins
See, I don't feel like trades. I don't feel like trades
though.
count though, G. I feel like this had to be someone who left, like willingly left the team as opposed to what they stayed.
That is like, and then I think they traded him for Mike Fitz.
Well,
Director Steve got
traded.
Director Steve has a submission.
Director Steve, go ahead.
Steve can name an
He said Paul Brown.
Yeah.
That was
it. Hey, good job.
Why Paul Brown is a good one? Think about my life's trajectory working in Cleveland. Because if Art Modell hadn't done the dumbest thing ever and two of the dumbest things ever, take the Browns out of Cleveland and fire Paul Brown. Had he not fired Paul Brown and had Paul Brown been a Brown his entire career, then I would have grown up a Cleveland Browns fan.
Damn.
The only reason I'm a Bengals fan is because Paul Brown went to the Bengals. My dad was a Browns fan when he was a kid because he loved Paul Brown and he loved Jim Brown, but he was so obsessed with Paul Brown that when he started that he shunned the Browns and went to the Bengals when he started the Bengals.
Paul Brown has. My dad said Paul Brown was so popular, he thought that's why they called him the Browns.
Right.
I think there's a lot of people that think that.
So there's Paul Brown Tiger Stadium in Massillon, Ohio. It's named after him. There's Paul Brown Tiger Stadium in Cincinnati. And people think that Paul Brown is the reason the Browns are the Browns.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy.
It is amazing. He was just an all-time legend. And
the inventor of the forward pass.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll say, obviously everybody hates Art Modell, and he deserves that hate for Paul Brown and for mostly taking the team. He does deserve some love. I can't believe I'm saying this. Because he was putting black players on the Browns before most teams were, and not just one guy.
And made Ozzie Newsome the greatest GM arguably ever.
So he deserves credit in that
Separate the
area.
art and the artist in this case,
Just like we separate other guys and say, hey, this is a lot of good guys who did some bad things. He was a bad guy who did do some good things, too.
And by the way, after watching a lot of documentaries and going through it, the city of Cleveland screwed him a little bit. The city of Cleveland did screw Art Modell a little bit when it came to, you giving stadiums out, and then all of a sudden it's like, and Art Modell put a lot of his own money into the city. Art Modell wasn't that wealthy, but Art Modell would give money. He's giving money for this, putting his own money down, and I can see why he was upset.
But he was also a terrible businessman.
Yes.
But if he had not taken the team out of Cleveland, he would have been thought of as great.
Yeah.
Even with the Paul Brown thing, had he just sold the team at that point to somebody else in Cleveland, people wouldn't think of him in a bad way. But he did it to himself ultimately.
He got rid of Paul Brown.
Yeah.
He got rid of Bernie.
Yeah.
He got rid of Belichick.
And the Browns.
and
the Browns.
That's right.
Hey, y'all ever think how we always talk about the Browns wide receivers being so bad?
Yeah.
Browns wide receivers was so bad that he went to a bank to borrow money for Andre Rison.
Yeah.
That's
true.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And we already talked about it. All the Browns' best receivers got black and white pictures.
You missed
that's not a good. That's
not a good thing.
No. No.
All right, what's next?
All right, moving on. But before we do, don't forget to get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/UCSS and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. The Cavs kick off the second half, or tip off the second half of the NBA season tomorrow at home against the Orlando Magic. Go ahead, boy.
Before we get to that, first of all, Mike, you insulted me when I took a pretend shot.
It was hideous. Oh, it was hideous.
I'm sitting in the chair. I'm not a shooter. I'm just having a little fun.
Well, you flicked both hands. No one's ever shot like this. What are you doing, Bull? This is your jump shot.
I didn't do that.
You just did it.
I went like this.
I notoriously in middle school.
But I can't shoot. I admit that.
I used to shoot with two hands, and my dad, he's like, yo. I was like, but it's going in, though.
No, that's the wrong way to teach your kid.
He was like, bro, if you don't stop shooting with two hands, you're going to get cut.
Yes. Yeah.
And I got cut in 7th grade. He said, I told you. You can't shoot with two hands, bro.
It gets blocked. It's too easy.
It's right in front of your face.
Let me tell you something. If I was still 25, I would foul your ass and you wouldn't get off a shot. And let me tell you something. In the Brooklyn schoolyard, no blood, no foul.
Yeah, I don't call fouls.
That's it.
Do you
Only the wussies call fouls.
Do you ever take into consideration this, that I believe the general population has fallen off and digressed so much that people don't know how to play a regular, it's kind of complicated to play pickup basketball. It's a lot of unwritten rules. You can't pull up every time?
That's fair.
Or how do you know? How do you know that there's one guy that you're playing with that automatically brings the ball up and you don't? Like, it's an unwritten rule. Like, he gets.
Do you bring the ball up when you play all the time?
Depends on what group I'm playing with.
Right. Like, you're playing, but no one runs pick and roll, which is all advanced people do, right? Like
on my Thursday night group, there's a lot of pick and roll. On Monday night, it's all one-on-one.
Right. Look, like
that's boring.
Pickup basketball is actually like.
It's like an art. It's kind of dance.
It's a dance.
It's kind of a
when
dance.
When you played as a kid, like when I went to the park and played basketball, we would mostly play 3-on-3, not full court.
Well, I like 4-on-4.
But half court or
no. Well, it's a smaller court though.
Even when I was in better shape, I always preferred playing 3-on-3 half court. I always thought that was more fun.
There's more space. There's more space to operate.
When I grew up, we used to play 21 or 33. Like you don't know the game 21 or 33?
Like 21, you shoot, you make it, you shoot free throws.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never heard 33.
And then it was random stuff like if you missed on
you
go 19,
back down.
Go back.
Yeah.
And it's wash out 11. Oh, you ain't got 11 points. So it's basically that.
And there's tip and taps.
Yeah. But like tip, go back to 0. But here's the thing: once you get older, all that turned into like just king of the hill.
There's nothing worse than when you go play pickup and there's one guy who thinks he's way better than he is, who tries to go one-on-one the whole time.
You have that guy in any of these pickup games you play?
No, they don't get invited.
It's usually like you go to LA Fitness, and he's the guy waiting.
It's closed.
You know exactly who I'm talking about.
Hey, Bull, I got a question.
Yeah.
Not to cut y'all off, but everybody know the world-famous Rucker Park. What is the most famous pickup court in Brooklyn?
I mean, I don't know anymore because I haven't lived in Brooklyn forever.
In your time.
When I was a kid, it was Marine Park, I think. That's where I would play. And Marine Park is, I don't know if there's anything else famous about it. There was like a shop. It was like the first shopping mall in Brooklyn was in Marine Park. But we would go there, and there'd be like 3 courts. There'd be the court where most of the black guys played, which was the good court.
There's levels. Yeah,
and they would run full court there.
And then it was overseas.
Then the second court was guys who were like okay players, and they'd run full court. And then I say 3 courts, but there was really more than that. The rest of the courts were all for the slappies like me to play half court 3-on-3 games.
Yeah, randomly just playing horse and.
But there was a time.
Kickball.
There was a time. So I had this short stretch of time from like 22 to 24 where I had lost a crap load of weight. I weighed like 190 pounds.
Attaboy.
And I was in like pretty good shape. Like I could run. Because I was
you were a good
an adequate athlete as a kid, a decent athlete as a kid. And so when I was at 23, I gained weight after high school, and then I lost all the weight. I was in really good shape. And I played on the good court every once in a while. But I never shot the ball because I couldn't shoot.
You were the guy who set screens,
I could play defense, I would hustle, and I could rebound, and I could pass.
You take that on any pickup team. Yeah, but you take that on any pickup team.
I was the first guy in, last guy out.
He's crafty.
Yes.
Crafty.
McNuggets.
But there was always, on that court, there was this one white dude that played who had dreadlocks. He was a white guy with dreadlocks that were like, I probably said this before, but in my imagination, my memory
down
is that
to his ankles.
They were down to his ankles. I don't know if they actually were, but it was like the weirdest. He was the weirdest looking dude I'd ever seen. He would tie them all up, but they were like huge. The dreadlocks were like this thick. It was crazy.
I think what happened is like after I played basketball in high school. So what happened is like basketball players are elitists. Like so like you know what I'm saying, like they would not invite you if they didn't feel like you was worthy. So they would have these open runs where it's like, you can only be if you didn't play in high school or you didn't play AAU or you wasn't a college dude or you wasn't a dude that was playing semi-pro or overseas. Like you wouldn't even know where they was playing at. They would be like Saturdays is at the Y, Fridays is over at the center. Like it would be like these closed practices because. When you playing against civilians, people be running up underneath you.
It's dangerous.
It's kind of dangerous.
I mean, I jump like 3 inches off the ground. I'm not worried about getting undercut, but like if you could jump and you're playing with someone who doesn't
understand. I didn't think there was AAU when I was a kid. I don't know.
I played AAU growing up, but it was around before me, but there's a big difference.
High school basketball when I was a kid, in the 80s,
In New York City,
Brooklyn, in New York in general, was huge.
Yeah.
I mean,
we had all my rival. One of my rival high school, Lincoln High School, was a very
Lance Stevenson, Sebastian Telfair,
right?
The
Did
Rail
Kenny Anderson play there? No,
I don't think Kenny Anderson went there. But Lincoln,
Marbury maybe.
Marbury did, yes.
That is to me. It goes like New York is the mecca of basketball. There's no there's other places like Chicago. Chicago got some really good programs, like DC, like Berry Farms and Baltimore. They got good ball, but like New York, like by far, like I feel like I played in high school, but I'd be like, damn, Bull got to play.
Yeah, but I didn't play. I played baseball in high school, but not.
Basketball. But you got to play pickup in New York.
Well, yeah,
I played pickup in New York,
and I got to see Chris Mullin come down to Marine Park once and play, which was the coolest. Everybody just stopped and watched him play on the good court. It was awesome.
Better player, Chris Mullin or Detlef Schrempf?
Oh, stop!
It's Mullin, right?
Chris Mullin's a Hall of Famer.
I'm just checking the temperature.
Chris Mullin was on the dream team.
Yeah, like Chris Mullin had a fade.
Chris Mullin is one of the most underrated players I think of all time.
Yeah.
He was on the dream team. Like, you had to be the best of the best to be on that team. Everybody on the dream team was a Hall of Famer except for
Christian Laettner.
Christian Laettner, right?
We always wonder why Shaq wasn't on that team. That sucks.
They took Laettner instead of Shaq.
But Laettner was.
Well, we know why Isaiah wasn't.
We know
on the
Isaiah,
team,
but
Jordan didn't want him there.
Yeah,
Earl, you said we'll do Cavs.
All right, so we're going to do a quick change.
Yeah.
We're going to do who will be the Cavaliers' X factor for the second half of the season in overtime, and then we'll probably make that public eventually. I want to read the one super chat, and then what was going to be overtime, talk about it the last 10 minutes of the show. That's cool?
Oh, real quick. Can I do the buyout thing real quick?
Can you do what?
The Cavs buyout guys real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
1 point on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Chris Fedor reported that the Cavs are not willing to give a guaranteed rotation spot to any of these potential buyout guys on the market.
Smart.
Yeah, because they like
Is there anybody out there worth it?
Well, that's what I'm getting to. I don't think anyone out there would come in and is immediate upgrade over who they have. Yeah. So when they didn't make it with a deadline, I was like, oh, they're going to sign someone in the buyout market. That makes sense. Gallinari was the one guy I thought would have made sense because of his size, his shooting ability, his veteran presence. He's always hurt.
Yeah.
But he's a guy, at least a 6'8" shooter that you might feel comfortable playing in a postseason rotation. The other guys out there, the two best options.
Gallinari signed?
He signed with Milwaukee.
Oh, okay.
It came down to Cleveland or Milwaukee. They had a bigger guaranteed role for him, went to Milwaukee. They needed wing help. The two guys left are Joe Harris, who couldn't even play on Detroit this season, so I don't know how much he has left.
What happened to that guy?
Seth Curry, who just got traded to Charlotte, could get bought out.
Some other names.
Some other guys. I don't think any of them move the needle. I think at the end of the day, it's probably the right move for the Cavs to trust who they have. I would take a flyer on any of these guys just as an added depth bonus in case someone gets hurt. But if they're choosing between a guaranteed rotation spot on another team or a chance to compete for a rotation spot in the Cavs, I would assume they'd go.
I would sign. Why not
elsewhere.
sign Seth Curry?
I mean, I would take him. It can't hurt.
I mean,
but I want to say I don't expect them to make any buyout moves, and I don't actually blame Kobe Altman, JB, or the Cavs front office for
Seth
for
Curry
not
would
wanting
be a good guy to have if somebody gets hurt.
It's injury insurance. Yeah, exactly.
Is he the best of that group?
I think so.
They already have
But they have two. They have two tiny guards. He's a duplicate of kind of. He can't play him defensively with Darius Garland on the same.
But I'm saying you have the upgraded version in Sam Merrill.
Yeah.
So,
but I still would take him because there is going to be times, whether it's foul trouble, God forbid someone gets hurt, knock on wood, where Seth Curry can handle the ball. He could be your de facto point guard for a few minutes. Joe Harris has been a competent three-point shooter, a really good three-point shooter throughout his career. Has kind of fallen off the hill. But at the end of the day, the Cavs, and they say they like their 11, 12 guys. Yeah. I don't see anyone on that list, and maybe I'm just completely missing somebody who's an immediate upgrade and would knock out a Dean Wade, and Isaac Okoro.
But couldn't Seth Curry, even in the regular season, just take up some minutes, running the point here and there?
And that's why
there's no downside to signing him, really.
Yeah.
So I'm all for it. If they want to go and do it, like, I don't think there's any downside to it.
I would like
Gallinari. I thought made a lot of sense. He went to Milwaukee, but I just don't expect them to make a big splash in the buyout.
Cavs X factor. Remember, they get back in action. What's today? Wednesday. Tomorrow against Orlando. Yeah.
All right. So real quick,
do that in overtime. But go ahead, Earl.
Yeah, real quick. Shout out to everybody who always sends us super chats. Damian Frederick said that imagine if the Browns stayed in Cleveland. LOL. So shout out to Dame for that. So this was going to be overtime. We can do this for the last 4 or 5 minutes of the show. Anytime that you're in this host seat, Bull, I got to set you up nice.
One
got to go. Movie edition. Remember the Titans, Space Jam, the original, or Coach Carter?
See, that's an easy one for me. I'm not a Space Jam guy, and I love the other two movies. So that's an easy – Space Jam is out for me.
I don't like Space Jam, like Mike, none of that.
Well,
you probably like Space Jam.
I did really like Space Jam. I also love all three movies, for the record. Like this is hard because I do think all three movies are phenomenal productions. Coach Carter – Earl and Ant said upstairs, like that was cut immediately for them. I loved Coach Carter.
Coach Carter
that was
awesome.
An all-time classic. Remember the
It's freaking Samuel L. Jackson.
I know.
Wait, what? And Earl say upstairs?
You guys would cut Coach Carter.
I didn't say nothing.
Now wait a second. I got killed for putting that in my top 5.
You out of pocket.
Did you guys not say that? Am I right?
No, you out of pocket.
I said I thought they were going to cut it. I would never cut that.
What? That's not what y'all said upstairs.
There were some parts.
That's not what you guys said upstairs.
It's some parts that's kind of
100% what I
cringy.
said.
Like if you like that, you probably like Save the Last Dance. I can't.
What's wrong with Save the Last Dance?
Oh no, it's cringy a little.
You got a problem with Save the Last Dance?
Yes, I do.
Save the Last Dance, the Michael Jordan thing?
No,
that's just the
I'm
Last
talking
Dance.
about Save the Last Dance.
I don't know what Save the Last Dance is.
With old boy Boobie Miles dancing around with what's her name? With Claire Danes? What is it like?
I thought Love and Basketball sucked.
I don't think I know that movie.
Boy, what's your deepest fear? What is your deepest fear, boy?
What's my deepest fear?
What's
that
mine?
I am inadequate. What's Crew? That's by the way, both of those movies, Coach Carter and Remember the Titans, are based on true stories.
Space Jam's not real?
No, I'll tell you what.
Really, Mike?
You know what the third movie I would put in there to make it tougher for me with Coach Carter and Remember the Titans is Glory Road. Anybody seen Glory Road?
That's the one with the.
Please don't tell me you guys have not seen Glory
No,
Road.
that's the old UTEP basketball team, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought, but
You've never seen Glory Road?
Isn't Glory with Denzel Washington about the Civil War?
That's Glory.
Right. That's Glory, right?
Well,
Wait a second.
Well,
Earl,
who's
you have
yours?
not seen Glory Road either?
I have not seen Glory Road.
Shame on you. That movie is also a true story. So it would have been 3 sports movies on true story.
That was Texas Western.
It's based on
Yes.
the Texas Western, which was the first all-black starting lineup in college basketball.
I saw that.
Bad job out of you for not seeing it. Wasn't that a great movie?
Yes, and now I think they're UTEP now.
It is UTEP
Yes.
now. Yes.
Earl, you got to watch that movie.
I'm gonna check that out later on today.
So now in the end, I'd probably cut that because I think it's the worst of the 3. But that's a great movie. You know, it's another one in that ilk too is We Are Marshall. Has everybody seen We Are Marshall?
I actually haven't seen We Are
Oh my God, you got to see that. Also based on.
Did you like Hoosiers? What's your thing on Hoosiers?
Hoosiers is great. It's a little dated at this point, but it's still a great movie.
It was really when I watched it the first time.
Yeah.
Because everyone had hyped it up to levels that it would have been impossible to reach. I thought it was so cheesy. I thought it was so cheesy.
Now, what are you taking between Coach Carter and Remember the Titans if you had to choose?
Remember the Titans. Yeah,
Me too.
It has to be.
Me too.
To me, that was the clear-cut one.
Well, Denzel's my all-time favorite actor, although I love Samuel L. Jackson too, and he's great in that role.
My worst fear is paralysis.
Did you say Boobie Miles before?
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah, he definitely said Boobie Miles.
Of course, it's from
Friday Night Lights.
Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
The movie, way better than the TV show, and the TV show was cheesy.
The TV show had a great first season, and then the second season went way out of bounds.
The thing about the TV show was a typical network show. It's like, oh, 1 week the Boobie Miles character is hooked on cocaine. The next week he's totally fine.
Yeah, and
I don't
like.
They killed a guy in that show for no reason.
And you know what? I know people. Most guys are going to disagree with me here, but hopefully I can talk at least one of you into this. The thing that pisses me off about the Friday Night TV show is that every girl in the school was a 10.
Yeah,
what is that nonsense? Not every girl is hot in the school. That's impossible.
I didn't like this either. I don't like that. I don't like when people my age get adopted by people Bull's age. Ain't no white man going to just adopt no 42. Like, you only a couple years older than me. Like, I'm in the house walking around in my drawers. Your wife walking around. You got your daughters in here. Ain't no white dude about to bring you in and you in the refrigerator talking about what y'all got.
You talking about Blindside?
Yeah, like
that's a whole
listen, come on now. He's 6 big 300.
I didn't know until I watched it because I watched Friday Night Lights.
Yeah.
Like
I read the
when I was
book,
in
by
Texas,
the way.
but I didn't know Michael B. Jordan. That was like his first like big break. I had no idea.
Well, TV show.
Yeah, well that's what I'm saying.
Friday Night Lights or Any Given Sunday.
Friday Night Lights or Any Given Sunday movie? Oh, Friday Night Lights any day, for me. I think Any Given Sunday is the most overrated sports movie ever.
No, they about to kill you in the chat, boy.
What's that? People can be pissed?
The chat is about to destroy you for that.
The program is better than
Love the program. Love the program.
You were talking about that. I didn't see that.
Although if you watch it now, it's not as good. It is a little dated, but at the time,
program,
it was awesome.
Listen, and then of course,
Any Given Sunday, the uniforms were all cheesy. It was like watching the USFL. I mean,
and his higher learning.
Pacino was great. Oh, that was a great movie.
His higher learning count is a
sports movie?
A sports movie.
No, I don't think so.
Do you know what terrible sports movie is objectively terrible, but I always loved? Remember Gridiron Gang?
That is not terrible. That's a great. I love that movie.
I love that. It makes you cry every time, man.
That wasn't terrible.
But it had terrible reviews, though. Well,
those people are idiots.
I agree. I love that movie.
The last season of True Detective Night Country got bad reviews. I thought it was awesome. We'll see you on Overtime.
I love Gridiron Gang.